And we are live. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to let's see. It says oh wow, you actually have to have a premium X account to be streaming on X. So I guess I lost that feature. But you know what? It's whatever. We're on Rumble, we're on YouTube. We're back with another Civil Offense episode. My name's Ahmed Mlih, and today we have a special guest here, Cory of Nature is the Answer. How's it going, man?
How's it going, man? Dude, you look like a Chad on your thumbnail. I love it. And darn Elon, he's got to catch up to speed. Doesn't he realize this is important content? Come on.
Exactly. I like the moment I started streaming, because I've been able to stream on X every stream I've done before this. It just hits me with the, oh, well, actually a premium account on X Twitter is required to be streaming there. That's nice. That's really nice. But yeah, let's see. We got into the Agora here. What if you wanted another Civil Offense episode, but God said we are so back. And James is in here. He said I would cry.
Jeez, they're fast. Holy moly.
They were putting that in before the stream started. We have James saying this is the collaboration we all needed. Yeah, I know James actually mentioned you in my Discord server, like right as soon as I put the announcement up. He said you're a good guy. What did he actually say about you? Let's get his exact words up here, just so that we could get that compliment going for you to establish credibility.
All right.
Yeah, he said Cory's a great guy. So you heard it from James, folks. Cory's a great guy.
Goodness. Dude, your content appealed to me because you do a really good job. Yes, not just with your thumbnails, but I'd say with the topics that you're discussing and the people that you're bringing in, it was very enlightening to me because not a lot of young people, I would say, are interested in the truth and freedom from the events that I do and a lot of the outreach that I do. But you, on the other hand, you're finding a lot of them. I don't know how. I don't know how you got involved with this whole shebang. I actually don't know really much about your journey. But it's also fascinating to me because I'm going to get involved with colleges and universities, as I told you. So to me, this is really important that I connect and I see, okay, how can we talk to the colleges and universities, where you even did an episode talking about how they're going woke, and how there's different ends and people are getting triggered over different viewpoints. Well, my goal would be to simply approach them from where they're at and ask questions and open the conversation and attain critical thinking, allow critical thinking, which I think a lot of them are intelligent. I would not, put them down. A lot of the older folks I talk to would probably think, oh, no, they're brainwashed or they're thinking in their ways. And I think that they have a lot of technological tools at their fingertips that they're able to use and that they're really good with. I mean, they know things that I don't. And you don't know until you talk to them. You don't know until you connect with them. But I've met some and they've been like, wow, like they amaze me. I've met people who are younger than me and I'm like, wow, okay. So, you just have to connect with them. And I'm going to be just really open-minded going into the college scene and see what to expect, because I'm not going to go in there with preconceived plans or any agenda. I don't have an agenda. My agenda is really just to open the mind, get people thinking, right? So because of that, I don't think I'll be too controversial of a figure. I'm going to meet people where they're at. And that's what a practitioner would do. I know we're talking about health, but we have to do that. We can't go in with an agenda and tell people what to do with their own life, with their own health. And people are starting to realize this, as people are always pulling strings on each other and everybody's feeling oppressed or the victim or need to be in charge or needing to, seek attention or whatever it is, feeling insecure. We're all facing an identity crisis. We're all going through the same emotions. We all feel what's going on in the world. So the question is, how do we navigate it, right?
Yeah, well, I definitely think it's an issue. I mean, it could be on either side of being dogmatic.
Right.
And so the problem would be that oftentimes, like ideologically speaking, this can happen in a lot of different ideologies as is. It depends a lot on what your values are. But there can be a point where it doesn't seem like, these people are worth reaching out to, because it does seem like sometimes, depending on why they came to these conclusions, I think that's actually an important thing, like why these people came to these conclusions. A lot of the times they can be these sorts of bots or NPCs or whatever that just like they spew whatever they saw online from their favorite creator. And they're like, yeah, this is the end all be all to everything because I heard somebody else say it. Right. And then at that point, it's like, you see this a lot. I mean, these days, just predominantly on college campuses, because it's the predominant ideology. From a more progressive lens. Like, so you see a lot more people that are progressive like that because that's what you're exposed to more of. I mean, there's not as many conservative students on campus generally, but even so, I mean, I've been within these like Republican organizations as well. I've seen it from the college Republicans. It's definitely something where they pretty much do the exact same thing. You'll tell them about something. I will say there are people on either side. For me personally, when I was in college, I found more of a reason to talk to some of more of the right wing people, just because I think there's more alignment on some of my ideology, like my social views and such. Not in every way, because obviously I'm not the type to say like every tradition's good because it's a tradition. I think there are good traditions. I think those are like, there's rational reason to follow them. But at the same time, if there's no rational reason, why would you be following it, right? So there are certain ways I feel like I can align with them more on in some ways. But, overall, there are plenty of them too that will just believe what they believe for the exact same reasons as the other side and claim that they're somehow like more enlightened when it's really not the case. I do think it's important to come in. I mean, not just assuming that somebody's going to be like that just because of where they're coming from. I definitely wanted to have more conversations with people on either side of things. I did end up having more of those talks just with people on the conservative side, because it seemed like, a lot of these progressive ideas sort of become excluding of people that are seen as intolerant or seen as like closed-minded. So it gets to the point where like the conservatives are now the ones that are actually the open-minded ones, in the sense of like, they'll actually talk to you. I'm not saying there's none of that on the other side. I'm not saying I never met anybody that was like that, but it just seems like there's a lot more closed-mindedness. And it's because, I mean, first of all, progressive ideology, but college in general kind of aligns with it in the sense of like they're teaching you what to think rather than how to think. And I mean, I don't see a problem engaging with people of basically any ideology, unless it's just, I mean, if there's just something you really shouldn't question, as far as like, I don't want to name like the horrendous examples of that, but there are things where it's like, okay, well, we should just know that this isn't the case. I mean, obviously there's a rational reason for it regardless, but there are just some people that are like, you're too far gone, man. Like, I don't see, you're just insane. But for the most part, there are plenty of people we can have conversations with this stuff on, as long as they're willing to converse. And as long as they're coming from it from an angle of not just saying like, well, it's true because I heard it, or, there's no other way of perceiving this. I can't take in any other information. This is what Ayn Rand called, not their version of what they do, but, she called it more like, if you're somebody that's not open-minded, when you're in a conversation, but active-minded, you're not just being okay. So like if you're open-minded, you're not being closed-minded, because you're actually taking in all information instead of none, right? We would say that, these people can be very closed-minded in the sense of like, they don't want to take in any information, right? Like they don't even want to consider other values.
Right.
And then you have open-minded people, but the problem can be that these people at a certain point, naive, they'll take in anything as like they hear it and it's like, oh, now it's true. So even before they became closed-minded, they could have been open-minded and just taken in the first thing, or they could just be to the point where they don't really have values because of how open-minded they are. Rather, it makes sense to try and integrate things with what you know, and actually weigh it against what you know to see if what you know actually still makes sense, or if that thing makes more sense, right? So there's definitely a process that should be going on in your mind rationally, to be able to consider these values. And the only way that you're really going to do that is with open conversation. I'm not for shutting down the conversation when it comes to a lot of these progressive values, even considering whether they're right or wrong. I think it's actually very much important to do that, because otherwise you just end up being those same people that are like, well, it's just wrong because these people are terrible. And that's it. That's the end of the story, right?
Yes. Absolutely. And again, coming from a practitioner point of view, you would not deny a client or a patient, no matter how difficult their disease is, but you may refer them to somebody who will better treat them. So what I'm saying is that, you never say, oh, there's no hope for them to heal. There's no faith for them to heal. There always needs to be that slight idea of, well, this is what I'm here to do. Like, I can't deny the patient or the client. I have to work with them and who they are. So I don't go in with the bias of, oh, they're left or they're right or they're this or that, because that's where I fall into the trap, to the divide. And I'm not here to divide. I'm here to unify. I'm here to see, okay, maybe they do have an identity crisis. Maybe they do have insecurities and deeper psychological underlying root cause problems that are not being addressed. And rather, they're being projected into society through the shadow that Carl Jung often talks about, through these mother-like figure archetypes through the left, or the father-like figure archetypes through the right, or whatever it may be. There's always some level of projection that's happening in society. And I don't claim to have the answers. I don't claim to be the expert. And I think that's exactly why I think I'll be able to speak to these individuals, because I can meet them from where they're at, because I don't have an agenda. I'm simply there listening to them, caring about them, and saying, look, the world is a problem, and you see it, we all see it, even though we all may disagree on our own worldviews. That doesn't matter. We all understand that freedom is important, or we all understand that the world need solutions, and that maybe this generation is the most adapt to do it because we're all in our 20s or 30s. We have the energy, we have the technology, we see where things are heading. We are the ones that are going to determine this future, so we have to pay really close attention to the actions, to the mindsets, to what we're doing in this life.
I
And
liked how
there
you
are solutions
I liked
that
how
we
you
don't
brought on
know.
the thunder when you were talking about bringing the energy, having
Yeah.
energy, and then there's like a thunder strike.
Yeah. So I'm looking over there. I'm like, oh my goodness. It's like God's calling my name right now.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I get where you're coming from on that for sure, because it definitely makes sense to be that kind of person, like, to promote the conversation, because that
Mhm.
I feel like that seems like your role. Like, you're the person who's ensuring that there can still be a conversation. Me,
Exactly.
on the other hand, it's like, yes, I do want to have the conversations. I'm not saying I have an agenda, but I
Yeah,
definitely have
no.
rational values
We all have
that,
biases.
well, yeah, I
You
mean,
admit
like,
to it. That's great.
right. I'm not saying I'm trying to just like say these values are the values that they should be because they're the values that they should be. Like, I'm not having
Right.
circular reasoning to try and just promote. I'm not trying to be dogmatic is what I'm saying. Right. I think, again, that's like the problem, being dogmatic. Me, on the other hand, it's like, yes, I do have firm beliefs. I'm not like, I'm not just going to be like bending every time somebody says something that's slightly different than me. I'm like, you know what, maybe it's like that. I can accept that. But I do want to have the thought-provoking conversations. At the
Yeah.
same time, I definitely want to stick to what I know to be true through reason. So as long as it's something that I've come to conclude, like, through like a reasonable understanding, and like, actually using my rational faculties to come to this, I'm going to be a little firm. I'm going to be like, well, here's why I don't think what you're saying is right. Here's why I think, what I've come to is correct. That doesn't mean that is forever like that. That doesn't mean that cannot be changed by any new information. But it is to say that, like, based on the information I've been provided so far and the arguments I've been provided so far, this is what I believe. And I would like to sort of defend that position, right? Because it makes sense to me. It is something that, I've come to as a proper conclusion, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And, there's many different ways to, people have developed all sorts of different philosophies and ways to look at the world. And I think what you're trying to hit on too is not getting stuck and being able to discern through these different ideas to come to your own point of view and your own understanding of the world, which is something that I would want to help everybody in doing and something that I haven't stopped in doing. It's like the teacher doesn't stop learning. And the person who wants to talk to others, who claims that they want to do something, such as myself going to colleges, I don't need to say that I have an integrative nutrition certification and that I do events, I've written books or whatever. I'm not going to go around touting this stuff, and I'm not going to say, oh, watch my documentary on this or that, and here are my views. But people are going to be curious, and I'm still going to have my own views. I'm saying I don't have an agenda, meaning I'm not going to impose it on others. I'm not going to say everybody needs to think like me. I'm not going to say that everybody else is wrong and this is what needs to be paid attention to, as much as I may want to, because everybody, stays firm in what they think is true. The point is that, again, if you're trying to introduce something new to the world, there's going to be controversy naturally. There's going to be some level of resistance. There's going to be some level of sacrifice. There's going to be some level of having to again, work from where people are. And if you're unable to flow in that sense, then that's when you run into a deeper problem. So absolutely, the points you make are important, and the fact that you're in Florida means we might be able to do something collaborative with that, which would be pretty darn awesome. But yeah, it's there's a lot of potential, a lot of potential. People have so much value in themselves that are untapped, and I want people to see that value that they have. Because people may feel powerless. Oh, they've done it before. People have figured it out before. Oh, there's other philosophies. I don't need to develop my own. You know, these other healing, the doctor will be my doctor, the teacher will be my teacher, the governor will be my governor. But what about yourself? What about technology and utilizing the tools at your fingertips to access any book, any material in the world? This is empowering, and this is what we can really utilize, especially in a support system with other people. And that's what I want to create, is not just a reservoir of information and knowledge that is untaught knowledge or alternative solutions, but a support network for people. And we're doing that online. I mean, unintentionally, I've become basically the person helping the conspiracy theorists face their own traumas, having to face the world that is resistant to their ideas. And they're trying to find people who they agree with, or they're trying to find people who they understands their struggles in life. And so everybody usually clicks on a video because it appeals to them at a certain moment, right? So people are not going to click on this video, the people who perhaps need this the most. And we have to bear that in mind, because if we want to change the world, we need to reach those people who need it the most. How are we going to do that? Unless we totally escape the box that we're in, which we can very well make it a box. We can very well stay in our echo chamber and never see outside of it. Although we're claiming that we're critically thinking and we're outside the box, we're in a box thinking outside the box. It's like the practitioner who has the ego of non-ego. Oh, I'm special because I don't have an ego like all these other people. It's quite interesting. This is how cults form. This is how different communities form, and being able to look and discern through all of this will help us really emerge to our greatest potential. Because I'm not here to be the only leader, the only person to inspire. Again, I seek to be inspired from others, and I want other people to be the leaders. And is this not voluntarism in action? Is seeing our own values, seeing our self-ownership, seeing that we should not impose our views on others? This is the very message that we promote. It is, and it has no agenda. It's Taoism, essentially, in the basic essence. It's Buddhism in the basic essence, actually, and from the Eastern traditions, which is not really having that ego present and allowing things to work as, you can say, nature intended, which is the whole point of my channel. But that's just another way of looking at it, right?
And definitely, it's I understand where you're coming from. You don't want to be authoritarian in your way of, talking about your views, because how would that promote thought? How would that promote people to come to these conclusions because they actually understand these things and they actually see these things as valid within, their understanding of the world? So how can people come to their own conclusions if you're just forcing it upon them? That is like literally like, what governments do to people.
Exactly.
and that's why everybody's like, well, not everybody, of course, but that's why you see massive amounts of the population just being basically drones a lot of the time, especially when like the more restriction you see within a given country or geographical area, you see less of an ability to think rationally and not a capability, not like that they can't, but that's how they're raised, right? And so I mean, even in America, there's authoritarianism, like top down control of what people should think, but compared to like China, you can see it even from if you're an American, you can see how bad it can get for you, like to the point where you're able to see through that window of like, oh wow, what if somebody sees me like that, like that I'm actually being controlled more than they are. Why would it be that I wouldn't want to get out of that? Why would it be that I wouldn't want to actually be able to think for myself?
Yes.
We have Jason the Geotech in here saying seed oil. True. The seed oils are the problem. I mean, as non-authoritarian as I want to be, those are a problem.
Yeah, the food impacts us a lot. And let's be honest, permaculture is one of those solutions that they're not taught in school. They're not taught how to grow food. I mean, how basic and essential is this to our life? We're not taught about it. Now, there's many other things we can say that for in the schooling system, but that's just one. Now, there are master gardener programs at USF, and certain, college campuses where they allow people to do it, but it's not seen as a necessity. And it's mostly older people, again, 50 and up. There's no inspiration. There's no empowerment. There's no saying, hey, here's the solution to cancer, diabetes, to pretty much all of the world's problems when it comes to our health. Nope. It's really like, oh, well, here we have a database of plants and we learn about plants and here's how we can garden and do it in a certain section and do it in raised beds. It's like, where is the energy, right? And
Yeah.
this is, you wonder why the youth is not involved with gardening and it's all a bunch of older people. It's like, there's no energy. There's no inspiration. There's nothing going there to attract them, but it's actually so powerful as a solution. And so then the older folk generation will be like, oh, the darn young kids, like I said before. And then the younger generation's like, well, the old people. It's like, hey, I can understand where they both are, because the point is that they're both right in their own regards. And, the younger generation may be focused on technology. They're focused on keeping the old ways, traditions. I love traditions. I love Christmas. I love all these different holidays. And I also love all the rebels who say, no, we should do our own way. I love it. I think it's beautiful. This uniqueness, this value, that's what I'm trying to highlight, is seeing and thinking for yourself. And then being able to learn and learn from all these different ideas and different ideologies and philosophies, and not getting stuck. So permaculture is essentially working with the natural environment, mimicking nature's patterns. So a food forest would be an example of permaculture. Think of a forest in nature, but replicating that, you can have a food forest, food all around you on a small plot of land. You can do this replacing your lawn with a food forest. And that will produce so much yield. There's more lawn than there are corn, wheat, pretty much every crop in the world combined. There's lawn. And lawn provides literally nothing. It also has the most sprays and poisons. And it's the worst monocrop perhaps in this world. It does nothing for us, and we spend so much time, so much energy and money on this, and it does nothing. Why are we growing lawns? What's the point? We've been pretty much brainwashed into using lawns. It's the greatest conspiracy, but nobody talks about it because of how simple and obvious it is.
You know, the thing is, I had this talk on another episode, previous one, called Subversive Technology. And, you know, there was a guest on there. It was Doug Terabyte. He was bringing this up. He was talking about the same thing with the lawns. And but, you know, him and Esso's point, they were guests on the show. They were saying that, you know, this is a result of HOAs. Like, you know, the fact is, like, these are things implemented in order to control the state's land titles. You know, this is very much so like another top-down thing that the government's trying to do in order to control society. And this is where a lot of this stems from. You know, I don't think, you know, people just couldn't come to these conclusions and that's where it stemmed from. It's not that, you know, people were irrational and it just led to this. It's that, you know, states have imposed these things for so long that the control has caused people to be like using their rational faculties less and not really questioning things and just kind of going with it, right? It has very much been a top-down sort of establishment of this control. And I did want to talk a bit before we get back into that. I had like an intro that I was going to do. We ended up having a good conversation really so far. You know, it's been enjoyable, though we got like 20 minutes into the episode and what I was writing for the intro was like something else, but it's all good. You know, I think, you know, sometimes things turn out to be better than you sort of plan them out to be anyway. But I do want to mention, like, for the viewers, you may notice I have a different set of glasses on. I'm somebody that wears glasses, and you know that honestly is like something I related to the episode because I just got these today. But you know, it's something I thought about because I'm like, what I'm actually doing with these glasses is, you know, a bit of a backstory. Like most people, it's like I'm just a kid. I see that, hey, you know, I need maybe some help reading, or maybe they just tell you at the doctor's office, it looks like you're not doing so well in this vision test. How about? And it wasn't even that I felt that I couldn't read. It was just them saying that to me at the vision test. And then they send me to go get glasses and they're like, yeah, you need glasses. Here you go. But what I've done for the first time is I've gotten a lower prescription of glasses. These are lower than any prescription I've gotten before. And it's not a result of a test. It's a result of me finding out about this thing called Bates method, which is essentially using like a weaker prescription in order to train your eyes back to seeing normally. And the thing is here is that you can, I mean, well, Bates was a doctor in the like 1920s. He recommended just throwing out your glasses completely, which is not the most feasible thing for a lot of people. But, you know, if you can train yourself to do it, you know, it's something that over time you can even improve, as well as just wearing them when you don't need to. Like if you're out on a walk, seeing things from afar and just looking at them like that. I hope to, you know, every couple months at least, like, you know, switch out for lower ones to see if I can do that, because it seems like it's something that works for people. And, you know, that really brings us to the topic of today, right? And it's sort of something we've already been addressing, which is like the norm following the consensus has brought us to a point where medicine is about eliminating just the symptoms. I mean, even forcefully, as opposed to helping people heal by addressing the root causes of the disease, which is something that you seem to very much agree with. And, you know, we've been instructed to sort of not see ourselves as having free will when it comes to our health. But you, like myself, seem to know that, you know, we have this autonomy when it comes to it. And
everything.
Yeah, exactly. And basically, you know, I can't imagine something in our lives that we really don't have autonomy in. But, you know, you know, reclaiming it is just a matter of having a better understanding of ourselves and reality. And, you know, I that sort of leads us into the rest of the episode here, because I kind of want to, and you know, we have oddities and rarities in here saying you wear glasses because you're nerd, because you nerd. He said, I doubt the glasses method. People have genetic predispositions to needing glasses. You know, see, the thing is though, like what I know about the necessary sort of like, or what's seen as necessary, the reason that you need glasses, I've been like seeing stuff about it, is your eye formation when it comes to your development, and like the reason people need more of them now, and not just because glasses were invented and therefore people are wearing them now that they need to correct them, but more so like the development of your eyes when you're outdoors is different than when you're indoors, and your body's basically not getting the right signals to stop the formation of the eye at certain points. But this is something that you like seemingly can retrain. It seems like there's a lot of other things in your body that you can retrain. And you know, like there's been, I was going to bring up these examples a little bit later, but you know, it seems like the medical industry is sort of causing aversion. I mean, not just sort of, but they are causing aversion to true healing. And they're instead pushing these forceful fixes like surgery, or, you know, like I said, putting a bandage over the symptoms rather than addressing the root causes. Like when you have like you need your tonsils removed, they say, or you need your wisdom teeth removed. And, you know, the thing about wisdom teeth, I like, this is a problem of people not having the right like fat soluble vitamins in their diet. It's a result of people not having the same things to chew on that they used to, like, you know, very like, you know, people used to chew on like bone and meat and all that. You know, it's like we had a very different way of eating compared to now, as opposed to all these soft processed foods, which are very much messing up, you know, our jaw formation. And even if you want to like, you know, have something that you're fixing this with, I know people that are like, you know, they do mewing, they do this to fix their jaws. They also chew a lot of mastic gum, which is something that allows you to train your jaw. And
you bring up a lot of relevant solutions.
Yeah, I'm trying, you know, that's because again, it's like an issue of like people thinking that you just don't have free will when it comes to these things, or you don't have autonomy. You know, there's like, well, you know, appendix, I know at least, you know, the solution to any sort of problem with that would be more so you could stave it off with biotics. It's something that you can help that with instead of just removing it outright, like a lot of these things. I know one thing, you know, I remember I was in because I was in college, I was doing some like leadership in these groups. You kind of asked where I came from and what my background is. I had and I guess I'll just get into that and then I'll let you talk, because I know I'm talking a lot here. But I had initially sort of like just been interested in politics itself. I was very like much so like, I was like, oh, you know, look at the elections, how they're going and how the country's going and stuff. And I was relating it to that. So I'm like, let me just go find a party to join or something, and or a club. And I ended up joining like the College Republicans and Turning Point and all that. And I eventually started setting up my own Young Americans for Liberty chapter at my school. I was the one that actually like brought it back to the university, which I felt like that was one of the places I fit in more better than like some of the more like just outright conservative places, as opposed to the ones that are conservative friendly, but also libertarian friendly. There was a guy who, you know, came in, and you know, he was mentioning like circumcision as, you know, sort of like this thing. He's like, it should be like, well, he was basically questioning whenever there was like a libertarian candidate or somebody that had a position, he was asking them what their thoughts on this were. At the time, I was more so like just a little bit like, I thought it was odd that this was a question he was asking. Like I kind of, you know, looking back, I feel like I was a little too judgmental about it, just because it's like, you know, that actually is a problem. Like there's a huge industry about this where they're making cream out of the baby's foreskins. Like, have you heard about that? Where it's like, Oprah's just straight up showing it to people. She's like, yeah, this is a cream you can put on your face using that for rejuvenation. But there's a whole industry trying to like, again, forcefully do something to children without any sort of consent, right? You know, without any sort of option, you know, where it's like, hey, this is the solution. You know, how about we do this to your kid? And they ask you over and over. They're like, hey, how about we do this? Hey, how about we do this? You want to do this? You know, because there's such a like an incentive structure surrounding it, and there's a lot of fake, like, you know, sort of like just BS science surrounding it, like this consensus that it's cleaner and that, you know, you're staving off any sort of diseases. Yeah, it's proven. It's, bro, trust the science, right? It's in the science. It's in the literature.
Yeah. Scientism, we call it, right? But it's funny how you have all these different things, health and politics, all coming down to this understanding of, okay, autonomy and looking into these ideas for yourself and coming to your own conclusion. You hear the screaming bird in the background, sorry. But it's amazing. You just shared so many different solutions. I think most people are probably unfamiliar with. There's also things like pinhole glasses for, you know, retraining your eyes, or even just doing simple eye exercises like keeping your head still and then or moving your head and then keeping your eyes still and then focusing on a certain object and then certain distances, and then every so 20 minutes when you're on the computer you take a break and then you go look at a distance. There's a bunch of different methods for eyes, or even just looking at vitamin A consumption, right?
Yeah.
And then looking at like foods like liver, which are like so high in vitamin A, but nobody's eating it anymore. And it's like,
Right.
the reason why it's called liver perhaps is it has like every nutrient in the world.
There are
But
wait, real quick.
yeah.
There's liver and there's testicles in my fridge right now.
Okay. Thank you. I needed to know that. No. Well, frankly, those are helping people a lot. I know one of the topics we wanted to talk about was infertility, and this is something that's affecting a lot of people, right? Growing more and more testosterone. And frankly, is there any better food in the world than testicles? Or I don't know. I mean, frankly, that might be the best option for a world that is in dire need of nutrition. And if you have liver problems, you eat a liver. If you have a kidney problem, you eat a kidney. I mean, pretty self-explanatory. But there are plant-based alternatives too. Of course, they may be exported from across the world or lab made, and there's a lot of problems, and that's where permaculture comes in. And then permaculture and regenerative agriculture work together really well, having animals as part of the agricultural landscape, because everything gives off to one another, right?
Yeah.
The
With
plants
how
help
things are
us.
produced now, you see a lot more of an ability to be environmentally conscious with regenerative farming of cows, as opposed to this monocrop agriculture where they're just like spraying fields and killing all the animals there and just depleting the soil of nutrients.
Yeah, and then you have the runoff, and you have a lot of problems that come from that are sometimes hard to statistically get a grasp on, because you have millions of acres being designated for these certain crops, and then people like Bill Gates are buying up all the farmland. And it becomes a big problem because, again, food forests are getting so much more food in a smaller plot of land. There was even a guy in Japan who invented the term natural farming, and he was competing at the time with big farmers, and he was getting more yield on a smaller plot of land. How did he do it? With no pesticides, with no fertilizer? It's because he was working with nature intelligently, using methods that they never heard of. And they were order followers who were stuck in their way of, oh, I'm just going to do what I'm told. Order following is the root to all evil, right? So when it comes to any of these problems, the doctors doing what they are trained to do in the medical profession, they're not trained about nutrition within their 8 years of schooling. And natural medicine is not patentable. So it's very easy for a medical doctor, to say, well, here's the pill to the ill. Oh, you have this problem? Oh, take this pill. And not looking at any other alternative, or even asking the client, hey, what would you want to do? Do you want to do something more natural? No, I'm the doctor. I'm the expert. I'm supposed to tell you what to do with your health, right? They create this expectation, and then they create the justification for the client to say to themselves, I don't want to be in charge of my own health. I don't need to be in charge of my own health. I need to be dependent on somebody else, because it's much easier to let somebody else handle it. But then they wonder why they end up with cancer later on, or all these other problems, and everybody mourns. It's like, sorry to say, some level of karma involved within the world, that if we're not learning, we're not taking control of our own life, expect things to get out of control and expect problems to appear that you don't know where they're coming from, because you were not in control.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
don't
it's
you didn't know.
unfortunate. It's unfortunate because people aren't really taught. Again, they're not taught to think, and they're really not taught to search for solutions outside of what the consensus is. Because again, it's like this
People
very authoritarian, like imposed consensus.
people need to be inspired.
Yeah,
It's not that the information is there. You recognize that. You just shared a bunch of solutions,
yeah,
and you
and I have
probably
more.
got, yeah, and you probably got some of that from researching, right? I'd imagine.
Yeah,
So if it's out there, and it's being censored too, but nonetheless, there's still a bunch out there. And if it's being censored, that means that it's still there. It just has to be, unveiled. And there are people who are developing their own search engines, their own ways of doing that. If you want it, you can find it. That's pretty much the nature of the internet. All the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful. um, but that's a tool. Technology is a tool. It's not inherently good or bad. It's what we use, with it, because it's man-made. It's something that we created, so we have control over it. Same thing with AI. It can be something really beneficial for humanity if we permit its usage, if we understand our natural intelligence beyond the artificial, understanding our role, which is to utilize those tools and not become the tools of our tools. Right. So this is the struggle we're going to head into. And everybody, I would say, understands this struggle. So when I speak these words, I think most people will be able to sympathize with me on the college campuses, it doesn't matter how much knowledge they have about artificial intelligence. They're surrounded by tons of different distractions on a daily basis and technology. I'm sure they've had some level of understanding. Wow, I was on TikTok and I was scrolling for 3 hours. Wow, my dopamine rush was going through the roof, and then I ended up depressed, or I have anxiety. How many kids in high school was I helping with depression and anxiety? And I wasn't helping them because I was an expert or anything like that, but because I was simply there for them, because I simply listened to them, because I was there for support. So really, it's about inspiration. If somebody's inspired, they want to do something, they want to better their life, they will find and meet other people to do that. They put themselves on that frame of mind. They create habits around that frame of mind, and now it's easy to do those actions, and it's easier and easier to create and manifest that life that you want to create. And I've met people who inspire me, and that's where I got to where I am now. It's people like Jim Gale, who has 50 acres in St. Cloud, Florida, who has a massive permaculture demonstration with off-grid Airbnbs and grazing cattle and showing how food forests can change the world and how he delivers the message. If it wasn't for that, I would not be as captivated into that subject. He came from all different angles. He delivered it mathematical, religious, all the different ways that you can deliver that message, because he realized, if this is an important message, I need to reach everybody. And so he did. And now I'm co-authoring a book with him. And now I'm creating channels with him. This guy's amazing, right? But there's so many other people out there that are doing amazing work that people don't know about. But if they understand and they know about them, oh my gosh, their worldview can open. You see how one person can make a big difference on the internet. People like Elon Musk, Jordan Peterson, people will follow them to the end. Millions of views, and then they're invited on colleges to speak all the time, right? So if they can do it, why not you? And also, you can be that inspiring person for others, but not trying to be inspiring, just because you are inspired. Naturally, that spirit will essentially radiate from you, I would say. I mean, that's what I witness when I'm doing my events, when I'm going to these places. I'm like, wow, these are people who care about the world. I don't need to stay depressed and looking at all the problems of the world. There's a billion problems. We can talk about infertility and disease and cancer and heart disease all day, and we can go on and on and on. But here are the obvious solutions that are embarrassingly simple, that actually heal so many of those problems all in one, like a simple plant that has like hundreds of compounds within it, or a simple animal food that has hundreds of compounds within it. It's fully digestible. I mean, it's crazy, but it's simply, we've been denaturing these foods, taking parts out of these foods and messing with it. And then order followers are just going with it. And then everybody's just consuming it because other people are consuming it. Oh, my friends do it, or because I don't want to challenge my own worldview. You're not in control. You're not inspired. You're not empowered. I want to see people inspired. I want to see them empowered to where they feel like, wow, I can experiment. I can cook. I can find all these herbs and spices I never knew existed, all these foods, all these fruits. I mean, my goodness, that's where I am. I'm finding out chocolate sapote, the chocolate pudding fruit. I mean, that's amazing. a fruit that tastes like chocolate pudding. I mean, come on. There's a peanut butter fruit. I mean, there's cotton candy mango. Hello. And most people have ever heard of these. And again, they're not taught about this. In school, I didn't learn, I learned how to read and write, but I was reading and writing stuff I didn't want to read and write. I didn't expect to become an author and write on my own. I didn't like to read and write in school because they made me do all these things I didn't want to do. So once I became inspired and started learning about the things I wanted to learn, all of a sudden, wow, I'm an author. I'm making seminars and stuff. It's simply what a little bit of inspiration can do. And if we have an inspiration, guess what? Our culture comes back. The music becomes good again. The video games become good again. All those things that people are complaining about will come good again because people are inspired. The energy is there. The energy right now is stagnated. People are looking for solutions, but they're not being the solution, or they're not seeing those solutions that can bring them and elevate them to a higher point, like permaculture, that can really break things in society. When you put it in practice, when you see it with others, when you experience it in person. Because if you walk through a food forest and you're like, wow, I'm surrounded by food, and it's like you're with a bunch of people who are like, you can say high vibration, who are like, this is awesome. There's nothing beating that. And you can bring anybody into that food forest. Doesn't matter if they're left, right, libertarian, it doesn't matter. They will all be open-minded. They will all be inspired. 100%.
All right. Let's get to some chats here. That was nice. Let's see what we got. So we got James saying they need people to rely on the political economy. And so by that he means that like basically the state in order to operate, it sets up a political economy, which is having this setup societally to where they're optimally controlling people, or at least most efficiently as they can, by having things the way they are, like by having like the control over land, like, you know, with HOAs, with sort of the idea that you have to have like you can't just homestead land, you actually have to purchase it. And that's actually part of the problem when it comes to the whole monocrop farming, or Bill Gates like buying these huge swaths of land. It's the fact that they can just like, you know, when you have all this money, and also when the state sanctions it, you can just obtain far more land than you can realistically even homestead, to the point where there's no longer competition as far as who gets to the land first and uses it in like through whatever means they see fit. It just becomes now this rich guy owns all of this land. And then now there's no way to establish, like, I mean, you can buy your own land and do the whole permaculture thing, but it makes it a lot harder for people to just get up and do it. Like they have to work first. They have to work under the state, like the way they're directed to, like go to their 9-to-5 job and save up or try to make a business or something like that. They have to go through a lot more like hoops in order to actually get to their sort of goal, because of what the state is establishing as far as all these barriers.
Notice I said the idea is simple, but I didn't say it would be easy.
Right.
Okay, there's always going to be resistance, but that's not the point. We don't sit around saying, "Oh, well, the problems are too hard to address, so let's not face them." I don't even talk about how hard they are. I talk about the fact that they need to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have enough people who want it to happen and enough people who are inspired for it to happen, it doesn't matter how hard it is. People make this world work. People create the government, we say, right? Well, it's true. People are the ones that believe in the government's legitimate authority, illegitimate authority in reality, but they believe it's legitimate through their belief system statism. It's all people. If you change the people, the whole system collapses. If you have some people in their own house, just not even half an acre, not even a quarter of an acre, putting a food forest on just a small part of their lawn, and every person in the neighborhood grows just something, that economy is so decentralized now. That environment is so much more beautiful. You have butterflies and insects and all sorts of animals that come into that environment. It's much more inviting. It's people can see it, they can sense it, they can feel it in every single way possible. And they can live out that world that is decentralized. They can see freedom or voluntarism in action. So to me, these are the two keys for the future: voluntarism and permaculture. And it's just a matter of time for people to realize this. And I'm sure there's many other ideas, off-grid living and all sorts of things that you can integrate within. We call the stacking functions, right? But that's what we can do with you, me, other people. Everybody's got great ideas. We stack functions, and now we can create whatever we want because we're all delivering our piece of the puzzle. We all have something unique to share. And again, that's what gives us our value. That's where our self-ownership lives. It's like understanding this is who I am. And that's why I shouldn't be depressed or have anxiety, because I realize I can be inspired. I have the potential to share my story. Oh, I went through all this hardship. This other person didn't. Well, now you understand that hardship. That other person didn't live it. You can now speak on behalf of that. There's a reason why people like Theo Fleury, who's now into permaculture, he's like a famous athlete, wrote a whole book on trauma because he experienced it himself. But that trauma, he faced it and he went into that, and that allowed him to write that book. And now he's a famous author, right?
You know,
Tapping into it.
I was just going to point out that, you know, what people have pointed out to me, you know, because I originally thought, hey, it's just a matter of people like defying the state, like, you know, in their belief systems, and then, you know, things will like go away from there. What they've pointed out is that it's not even necessarily about the ideology people have concerning the state, even though it is beneficial for people to not believe that they're controlled because it actually helps them take the action. But it's about the incentives that are in place, and also, you know, the fact that they're taking the action. So, you know, we can be the people that are essentially like creating it, like these things to where, like, you know, whatever technologies they may be, it's just more convenient for people to be using them than to be following what the state does. And that's overwhelmingly how people are going to be essentially converting into these practices, which are against the way that the state operates and against the economy of the state. It's counter-economic, you know, but the thing is, like, in order to get there, there do have to be people that not necessarily even, you know, I mean, like, yes, it helps a lot when your goal is to actually make something subversive. But, you know, technology in general, as it continues, it can very much be so adapted in order to sort of thwart the state, or what, control, I should say. And it makes it so that it just becomes easier to do these things, rather than just do whatever you're told to do. So like, permaculture, for example, imagine you just don't have to rely on taking those trips to the grocery store, spending all that money. As it gets more expensive for people to even eat, of course they're going to be more incentivized to be engaged in that activity, right? So
Right.
like, as the state places more pressure on people, as technology develops, it just becomes that, and that is driven by people that care about these matters, whether it be because they're against the state, or whether they care about the benefit of humanity, or what have you. But it just gets to the point where, even the followers are just now following the thing that isn't even what the controllers wanted them to follow, just because it's easy. It's the path of least resistance, right?
Yeah.
That's just the matter of that.
Exactly. When you find that the truth is more inspiring than the lie, and that evil cannot exist where there's life, it's just a beautiful thing. And in integrative nutrition, we call this crowding out. If you add in a good food, it kind of crowds out the bad food. So you keep adding in foods rather than eliminating evil foods, and saying, to a client or a patient, saying, hey, get rid of this, get rid of that, get rid of this, get rid of that, and just like, basically it's like, what do I eat? Instead of doing that, you can be like, well, add in this food, add in that food. So, oh, you're having sugar cravings, add in a sweet potato, add in fruits. And then all of a sudden, now their sugar cravings go away. They didn't remove anything out of their diet. They simply added in something that wasn't there, that needed to be there. And so you can call it a sort of compensation, but really understanding what we were meant to eat in a sense too, and getting more back down to nature. Of course, my message, nature is the answer, is relevant here, is understanding our true priorities, our true needs, and what is actually going to sustain us in the long run. We learn that through time. We learn that through our own karma. And unfortunately, people learn through experience, not through awareness, right? So things have to hurt them first before they say, oh man, I woke up and all this stuff happened to me. It's like, it's bad. It's sorry to say, but that's why you need somebody who can go out there and say, here are all these ideas. You don't have to agree with me, but at least know about them. Plant the seed and at least know about them, because there might come a time where you need this information, or there might be a time where this information may appeal to you. And the problem is, people don't have that information there to begin with, and people are getting censored online. So what do we have to do? We have to move these actions real life. That's why I'm getting involved with the colleges. Not only that, I would feel bad. I'm 23. If I went 30, 40 years of my life and I look back and I'm like, oh shoot, I had the opportunity to connect with my generation and I never did. I have to do everything in my power if I have information that they aren't being taught, and people that I know who are demonstrating that solution, who are putting in action, and they don't know who they are. I have an obligation to say, hey, just look at this. Just look at it. Don't accept it. You don't have to agree with it, but just look at it. At least know what it is. Like voluntarism, this idea, it's like everybody's like left versus right, or libertarian or centrist. But what about voluntarist? What about anarchist? Oh, that's radical. That's dangerous. What about philosophical anarchism? What about the abolitionist, and getting down to like, well, they're not chaotic people. They're not people with bandanas on. Murray Rothbard's just there with a bow tie. He doesn't look like a a radical person who's throwing fire on the streets. No, he's sitting there writing a book that became like a huge volume of books talking about this idea of a new liberty, one that's founded on the non-aggression principle, which most people already agree with, which is do not initiate harm to another, and living our lives voluntarily, which most people already live. It's simply that small exception in our own minds, the mental justifications that are very dangerous. And as you know, mixing a truth with a lie makes the lie more dangerous. And the state has been manipulating people's minds. And the state, of course, I mean certain individuals who believe they have the authority over others, and many individuals believing in that authority. These people, these talking heads, these figureheads, that these puppets that they put in the front row, are being delivered to the common day person as the solution. But what about you? As I said before, there's a level of involvement that every individual can be involved with. I mean, we say this is our government, self-government, we're in charge. Well, how are we in charge if we're just writing down on a piece of paper, this is who I vote for? And it's not even consensual, because if 51% of people agree with this and the other 49% disagree, it's like, oh well, sorry, all these people must be imposed upon because it's democracy. It's just the way things are. Sorry. No, it's not the way things are. We live our life consensually. Why do we have to abide to this system just because everybody else is doing it, because this is how it's always been done? That's not That's not how, we think through things logically. It's not how we go about our own lives commonly. We wouldn't impose our will on our fellow man. We wouldn't take our neighbor's money, go over to his house and steal it ourselves. We have to hire somebody else and with the authority to do it for us. I mean, we're living our lives hypocritically and contradictory to our own morals, and we don't see it. So when you start poking holes in this and you start asking questions, it's like, why are we doing this? Well, there's clearly alternatives. There's clearly better ways to do it. And clearly everything else works voluntarily. So why are we coercing others to get things done? And so the same thing with medicine. It's like, why are we using these pills when there's a bunch of natural solutions that we don't know about? Where these pills even come from? Like, the pills come from natural forms, and again, we're taking them out of nature. We're manipulating it just so we can sell it to a broad audience. It's like, where do these chemicals come from? They come from nature. Nature has all the cancer cures. We're looking for one cancer cure. It's like, they're everywhere in nature. We simply haven't utilized them. We simply don't know how to utilize them. But it's all there. We have now AI. We can ask any question in the world. We have people like Mike Adams, who's developing his own AI because he's got a multi-million-dollar laboratory in Texas. And it's a website, brighteon.ai. He created his own AI chat models based on tons of censored research, censored health articles, and a bunch of everything that people are not going to see on ChatGPT and all these other ones. There's people who are saying, wow, this is a problem, so we're going to make the solution. We're not going to complain about the problem. We're going to just create the solution ourselves. That's what we have to do. And then showing by example, it will inspire people. I absolutely believe it because I see it in person. Again, and when you connect with people, when you're doing these in-person events, you become inspired because you can't help but be. But if you're not, I can see why people might feel not inspired and feel like the world is helpless and feel like there's nothing that we can do. So I need to bring this to the college campuses so that way this generation has that ability. And then guess what? If you have 50 people on TikTok filming at the same time, there's no censorship. You can't stop that many people filming at the same time. You can try, and of course, they probably will in different ways, but people who are inspired, who want to see a change in the world, if they want to do it, they will do it. And it's just that simple. I believe in what we can do. I truly think that we have it all. And it's simply been hidden, suppressed. We push ourselves down more than anyone else because we say in our heads we can't do it, right? Or the state, external or internal. I can't do it, or they are going to make me not do it. Away with that.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely hurdles put in place that try to prevent you from doing things but that doesn't make those things impossible. And that doesn't mean that if you really want to do something that it can't be done.
Jim Gale didn't ask for permission when he built his buildings on his land. He had state county people come to his land. He welcomed them. He's like, welcome. And they ended up with tears in their eyes 20 minutes later saying, I can't help but support you. Because he didn't go there defensively. He didn't say, well, you're from the States and you're destroying everything. He came from where they were at, like a practitioner, open arms, saying, here's the solution. If you don't like it, well, sorry, we're not going to comply, though, with your demands because we're not based on fear and violence. This is the solution. We're demonstrating it, and if you don't like it, I'm sorry. But he was filming on purpose. He filmed the guy, the county official, because he knew that if the county official did anything to him, he would essentially expose himself. And in history, the most powerful demonstrations have always been of the nonviolent resistant type. Look at Mahatma Gandhi. They had to go to jail to make demands with Gandhi because Gandhi overwhelmed the jail system. So to get his demands. I mean, my goodness, right? And so that's just an example of what people can do. Of course, here in America, we have a big jail problem too, but you can go down that road all day. Like I said, you can stay stuck in the problems all day. I want to engage with the solutions.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a lot more hindering if you're only focused on the negatives for sure.
But we do have to recognize the problem.
You're right. It's good to know what you're facing so that you're able to face it. But yeah, I mean, for sure, if you're what your mindset is sort of what the results are going to be, right? Yes. I mean, if it's a loser mindset, how are you going to succeed, right?
Exactly. That's it. We need the alpha male.
Yeah, don't be a loser, as Andrew Tate would say, right?
Well, there's a reason why he's popular. There's a reason why he got popular, right? Come on, think about it. People are desperate. They're in need of that masculine figure in their life. They don't have it perhaps. And so they're like, wow, I need this source of strength. And then men were looking up to him as like that hero for that reason. Not that they should, but because they were missing something within their own life. So it tells us and teaches us something much deeper. It's beautiful.
Let's see. So we have oddities and rarities. Let's see again, saying short guys just need to think in taller ways. I mean, kind of, you know.
Right.
He says, think tall thoughts equals tall. I mean, to an extent, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, your biology was also in a sense like influenced by your perspective, right? I mean, I know it is to the sense of like your mind state and what sort of compounds you're forming in your brain, you know, what your serotonin versus dopamine is going to look like depending on your outlook, you know, and what your hormones are going to look like depending on your outlook and your philosophy, your values.
Right.
So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that also helped it. But though I will say, height is also not a fixed thing. Like you can definitely influence growth as well. There's an account called Height Optimized on Twitter. He actually posts a lot of stuff about how to grow, and it's like it's legit advice. Like, you know, the body will adapt to certain environments. Like, you know, examples being like, you know, just like doing dead hangs on the sort of pull up bar, or like there was this guy on an exercise bike that said that when he just like sort of stretched the seat up and still did the exercise bike movements, that his legs stretched. Like there are a lot of ways in which you can modify yourself to be where you need to be, where you want to be, without doing it so forcefully as the people that are getting those surgeries to put rods in their legs and make themselves taller. It's still possible to grow inches without doing that, right? It's like, you know, even on the circumcision thing, like I remember like we were talking about this in my Discord server, like it's possible to undo that as well. Like there are people that on like Reddit that talk about doing that. Like a lot of these things are either undoable, fixable, whatever. You know, and like honestly, this is something like I was outside on a walk. I was walking and it was probably closer to sunset, but I had this sort of just, you know, thought in my head, and I wrote it down. And what I had told myself at this point that I had written down was that for every forceful surgical subtracting procedure, there seems to be a non-forceful, non-surgical, preserving or restorative method of healing, right? Like it seems that, you know, everything that, you know, they want to tell you as far as here's the solution, quote unquote, to your health. Like it just, I don't see a way. I just haven't seen any examples in which, you know, there isn't just something you can do about it yourself. There isn't something you can learn about. There isn't some way that the body can sort of just be in line with what your positive thought process is.
Absolutely. And again, recognizing your autonomy. This is it across the board, and that there are natural solutions for everything that you see as artificial. And, you know, it's funny because we're talking about, well, being in control of ourselves and our environment. Well, it's understanding our boundaries too with each other, you know, and with our environment as well. Because, of course, you have a big transhumanism movement that says, well, we can replace all our body parts and, you know, replace this whole world and all the natural aspects within it. Well, again, you know, karma is going to show through time, through our actions, what we should or should not do. And I think it would be evident here as well. We think we can master this universe in more ways than one. Well, it's going to kick us back in the butt and show us who's boss. That's essentially what I would predict on behalf of technology. We're going to use technology and be very dependent on it because of our lack of understanding nature, when in reality, we can use technology for our nature. And again, this is what I emphasize as natural intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence. So when you mention that we can grow in height essentially with just, you know, this guy's videos teaching you how to use certain exercises without using surgery, we're looking at a non-invasive, natural way to essentially increase our height without the need of some invasive surgery. In the same way, mewing is another exercise without having to get Botox done. And you see people who get
and Botox is a literal toxin, by the way.
Yeah, I mean,
like you are literally. Let me just say this for a second. You are paralyzing yourself with a toxin in order to have your skin not stretch. To have it taut, you know, you are that is quite literally poisoning yourself for some sort of aesthetic thing that you could be doing otherwise. And actually, if anything, Botox doesn't even look great.
That's what I was just gonna say. It's like you look up pictures of some celebrities, you're like, ugh. It's so funny. But yeah, and of course there's different types of Botox. There's medical Botox too, but you know, some people use it for all sorts of things. So there's different ways to approach this, right? So where we don't have to put everything under the banner of transhumanism and everything under the banner of this is bad, this is good. But again, being able to discern and being able to have an open and transparent conversation with people, which is, you know, the least we can do in this world with people who think that they're all right and that their worldview should be imposed on everyone else using violence. So the least we can do is simply be open, to the idea that maybe we don't need to live with necessary violence. We can actually live in a world where voluntary interaction is necessary and upheld as the highest goal, not violence.
And like it's been pointed out that this is something that can all, like, technology can assist. Like, it can even incentivize a lack of willingness to engage in violence, because let's say, like, with a car key fob, at first it was the case that somebody could hide, or start up your car without your key, and just take it, right? They could just take your car from you, hotwire it. And then now it's like the car actually needs to recognize that there's a key fob there, so it actually becomes a lot harder to steal cars. Or with wallets, like, or with credit cards specifically. But before it would be like all your cash is in your wallet, somebody takes it, they take your money. Now it's like a credit card that you can just cancel. And it's like these things actually make it so that we are actually coexisting better because of these technologies. Like, it makes it like so that, like, force is actually less there's less efficacy to the force, right? Like, it's not getting your way as much as you want to, right. And so it actually kind of just incentivizes people to act peacefully with one another. So there actually is sort of a way in which technology can very much be used by that. I mean, of course there are ways in which technology could be used to enforce law, which is a problem, right? The state using it to try and enforce law, but at the same time it also disincentivizes violence in the first place. And it can also be used to subvert means that are trying to oppress you, right? Like, if the state has certain technologies, you can use technology in your favor to try and avoid the sort of punitive measures that the state is going to try and enact against you. So, technology is very much just a matter of how you use it, as opposed to what the technology is most of the time.
Yeah. Well, think about it. It's a basically a product of our freedom, technology. And it's a product of nature too. So it's amazing when we understand it's a tool. Think of the printing press. I talk about the abolitionists and how they were able to change the minds of so many people. If somebody like Plato or Aristotle or ancient times, they had the printing press, how much more influential do you think their ideas would have been? And so you have to think about technology's role when it comes to spreading information and creating freedom, because freedom comes from knowledge of sovereignty, knowledge of who we are, know thyself. So when you understand that prerequisite, then you understand that the technology we have now can quite literally free the world, and probably overnight or within a week, with enough inspiration, with enough momentum. But it's about getting to that point, which we can do, which we're starting right now with technology, which is how a lot of people are reaching this message, which is how a lot of us are researching information. We're using the tools at our fingertips. And that's what's so beautiful about it, frankly. You see the patterns of history, the abolitionists using the printing press, boom, now the end of slavery happened after 6,000 plus years. And now we can end this next form of slavery, which they called political slavery, which is perhaps the greatest form of slavery that we are all under right now. And I talk about this in my book, Slavery Gone for Good, of course. And I talk about technological slavery and how the state may use technology in the same way they might use religion. Religion is a tool. It could be used by people if they want to say, hey, God's government is above man's government. God rules me, not man. That's what the abolitionists said. And they were able to use religion against the state. But what does the state do? They infiltrate the religion, and they use the religion for the state. And so the same way they can use technology for the state. And now it becomes a weapon rather than something that can be used for such great good. Because religion can bring people together. It can bring communities around a similar cause of caring about the world and maybe loving one another, the golden rule. A lot of the ideas that we share about morality, some of them have links with religion. But at the same time, then we look at religion and we say, wow, there's millions of deaths from religion. So we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're able to discern. We're saying, okay, religion is dangerous because it turns into government. It turns into the state where people are believing in its authority to coerce and compel others. But when religion is practiced voluntarily, it can be a really powerful force against those evils that seek to use violence. So that's just something to bear in mind. Another example of discernment, right? Because there's going to be people who come up to me, especially on college campuses, who are religiously charged, who are so charged in their ideology and their way of thinking. But if they're unable to discern, very easily they can fall apart, because there's so many ways to approach this subject of religion or diet or science or these different ideas that we think we might know it all to, or that the experts have figured it all out. As we just poked holes in a bunch of different ideas with health, we can poke holes in a bunch of other realms of study as well. It's all about perspective, seeing that we're living as one person in a world full of so many other people, all sharing the same reality, all studying the same reality. And we can say that there is a tree and that all these trees are trees, but they're each individual trees. Not all of them are the same from one another, although they're all trees. And so in the same way, how we're all people and how each individual is unique, although all being people. It's all a matter of being able to see that connectedness and the integrativeness, and then being able to look at the bigger picture and then being able to look at the root cause, right? Unless you look at the bigger picture, you can't find the root cause. That's what a practitioner has to do. They can't look at one part of the body. They can't just know about one little thing. They need to look at all of it and then be able to then decipher where is it. And frankly, they use nature's help more than anything else, technology or whatever, because if they talk to the client or the patient, they'll find out the problem probably more efficiently and more effectively than if they were to use technology. Oh, you were sitting in the wrong posture. Oh, you were, sleeping in the wrong position or whatever. It could be something as simple as that. But they would never know unless they started asking questions.
Yeah, I'm just checking your chat because I was seeing if there were any questions that I wanted to bring up here as well from there. The first one was like, "Hey Cory, I don't know your guest." This is actually being initially streamed from my channel. Cory's streaming it as well. But yeah, I'm Civil Offense. My name's Ahmed. I run the show. And
who are
I
you?
do. Yeah, well, yeah. Who even am I? But anyway, I do libertarianism. I really want to get into the health space because I've been honestly, I really got into it through Paul Saladino, who makes a lot of content about the animal-based way of eating, where he talks about a more ancestrally aligned diet. And then I really through him, kind of through guests he's had on, but also just being in the space, I really got into Ray Peat's work. I don't know if you're familiar, Cory. We haven't really talked much, but I really wouldn't. I don't know who I would recommend more to look into than Ray Peat as far as just a perspective on health, because it's actually where I became so adamantly free will about my perspective of health by looking into his work. It's wow. And where I started to lack that dogmatic perspective, and where I started to believe that, because his the sort of motto is perceive, think, act. It's really about taking in that information, understanding it, and then going forward based on that. So it's a very great way of understanding things. Obviously, even so, it's I come to understandings from that of I have perspectives on what I should and shouldn't eat. But at the same time, it's obviously you can't just tell people again, it's you can't just say hey, it's bad for you because it's bad for you. You need to be able to explain at least logically why that's the case. You need to be able to appeal to them, why these things could be bad for their health, why not just that, but what sorts of things they can do to still enjoy what they eat. Yes. Because it's not even just about, hey, cut out this food. I really do think seed oils are the worst thing to be consuming, but what do you do instead of that, right? What do you do when you crave French fries? And, the solution actually becomes, when you look more into it, it's well, there are plenty of saturated fat options like coconut oil, tallow, beef fat, such, that you can be cooking your potatoes in and make for yourself fries and do all. So basically just having these, and honestly, Saladino, I really like his work, or his videos when I say work. And he gives a lot of perspectives on why what he eats is correct. Though I do feel it's and he doesn't even really deny that it can be more lenient depending on who you are as far as what you eat. But just looking into Ray Peat's work, it seems to be there's a lot more suggestions as far as what you could be eating that's more in line with your biology, even even beyond what Paul Saladino talks about, how because Saladino talks a lot about his problems with vegetables because they do cause him eczema problems and autoimmune issues and such. So he talks about this is why I don't eat vegetables. But then Ray Peat will at least in that sphere you'll learn that hey, well, what about let's say carrots, they're not really defended. Their only defenses are against bugs in the ground and fungus. So they're actually an antibiotic or an antifungal thing to be consuming in the first place. Right. And I know we even had oddities and rarities being talking about this, but Ray Peat has the carrot salad where he talks about longitudinally slicing a carrot, right? So to essentially keep the insoluble fibers intact to run through your body and to be sort of an anti-aromatase or an aromatase inhibitor. So basically being anti-estrogen, excess estrogen in the body, and just having all these gut and hormonal benefits to it, and eating that with coconut oil and apple cider vinegar and honey. And oddities and rarities said taking carrots that way cured me of being gay. Okay, well there you go. I mean, it lowered the estrogen. So, but I just really think that it's been good to get all these perspectives on it, and I really do encourage you to read that, like Ray Pete's work, because he has a lot of like blog posts from like back in the day, when he was, because he's passed now, but he had a lot of great perspectives on these things. Very much encourage it. But let's see. So we have, we had Oddities and Rarities saying the appendix is basically just a natural grenade inside the body that's best to remove as soon as possible. I would think that's not the case, because it doesn't seem like this is happening to everybody, right? So, but also, it seems to be hypothesized, at least, that it's a matter of, even from the main perspective of science, like consensus, that it's like a problem of like fecal matter being lodged in there. Okay, so where's that coming from? Why is that happening to you? Does it make sense that biologically speaking that your body's thwarting you? It doesn't really make sense. There seems to be some sort of other cause that like is causing your body to do this in the first place. Yes. And so, it just makes so much sense that, hey, maybe there isn't really anything that your body needs to have removed from it forcefully like that. Maybe it just makes sense that there is some sort of practice you need to incorporate into your lifestyle that really would help mend that.
Right. There's some deeper problem that isn't being understood yet. I mean, look at wisdom teeth. You mentioned that before, right? There's some studies that prove that there's stem cells in those wisdom teeth that can help prevent things like cancer. So that's a pretty big deal because people are getting those wisdom teeth removed. And perhaps there's also a reason why they're called wisdom teeth. Like, do we ask these questions, right? Now, teeth is a very interesting conversation because a lot of industries would simply not exist if it weren't for the market being suppressed, the free market of ideas. I mean, look at the teeth industry. My teeth are not perfect, but my parents' teeth are perfect. Why is that? So if we don't ask these questions, I would go to the dentist. I'd be like, well, why are my teeth not perfect? Does it have to do with the way I was like raised, what I was consuming? Does it have to do with like the formation of minerals? They don't have answers.
No, Cory, it's obviously genetic. It's obviously just something that you were born with and you can't fix.
And then, right, it's like, then you hear about epigenetics, right? And it's like, oh, we can change so much through nutrition and through food, and it actually affects our genetic expression. Okay, so everything's not genetic. Now it's like, okay, well, what do we do? And it's like kind of obvious. Yeah, if you look at a lot of different studies, even the Weston A. Price Foundation, if you're familiar with their work, I mean, they've done studies on cats and seen over generations cooked food versus raw food, and then different types of food and how it would affect their facial developments and the different aspects of their body. I mean, that's just incredible, right? And you see different cultures and how they have different structures in their face and stuff. It's just fascinating. And I know some of it may seem far-fetched to some people because a lot of it's still being discovered. A lot of it's still being studied. But it's all there to really open our eyes to say, well, is it really what we think it is? Because I don't think this dentist industry should be making as much money as they do off of these braces and Invisaligns and all the things that they do. I think, it's kind of a perpetuated business model that is never going to be solved unless people get to the root cause. I mean, they're always going to make money off of people's problems until people find out, wow, we don't need to be having these irregular teeth structures and such. A lot of it, I would think, would have to do with the birth system. We're pumped with like 3 times more vaccines at birth than usual. That's just one thing to throw out there, whatever you think of it or not.
Look, hold on. Let me just say, this is YouTube. We are not giving any sort of medical advice. Yes. Okay, we're not giving any sort of medical advice. That is just our own perspectives on this. We're not saying anything. Talk to your doctor and so on and so forth and whatever. That's the obligatory statement out of the way. Go ahead.
I know I used the bad word. And so I know.
I mean, it's not that I disagree with you. It's not that I disagree with you.
Hey, we're in this together.
Yeah.
Your channel falls, my channel falls too. We'll just start over again. It's fine. So, but I'm getting censored anyways up the kazoo. And I'm not even like, I try really hard, but anyways, yeah. So like breast milk, and being breastfeeding versus not, C-section versus vaginal birth. I mean, that's like a big deal in health. Everything that happens at the birth stage makes such an impact later on in people's life. I mean, we even see this with psychology and trauma, right? Where things can resurface later on in somebody's life and they don't know where it comes from until somebody asks them enough questions and it gets deep into their soul, basically asking like, what is it? What's shaking you up? What's causing you to not sleep at night? What's causing you to constantly go through these different mental loops in your head? And so we're all facing different traumas. We're all facing different problems. But I think they all can be addressed. It's just we have to give ourselves the faith and the courage to do so. Traumas could otherwise never be faced, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll put that aside. I don't need to pay attention to it. It's like, oh yeah, my teeth are imperfect, but I'll just fix it through some surgery. It's no big deal. The surgery will fix it. Well, I'm not gonna. That's to me, that's not a sufficient description. Like I'm gonna go to that dentist and ask them like 100 questions, and I'm gonna be like, so why is that? Why is that? Why is that? Why is that? And
Yeah.
they're gonna sit there like, I don't know, because that's usually the response I get.
Yeah. And
Unfortunately.
the thing is, like, my family for so long, like my family before me had made so many medical decisions on my behalf that were just following the consensus. And honestly, it came to the point where I was like, I want to be able to, overcome any of the things that are claimed to be these problems that just need to be, just patched, right? And that's very much inspired me to get to where I am now. I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism at an early age, and so I was like, well, I guess I'll just take the medication for it. But then eventually, like, I just came to such a great understanding that it's like, well, my lifestyle can help my thyroid function. And it did. Like, I looked at the numbers before and after, and the TSH lowered, which it should, if you're actually doing the proper converting of thyroid hormone and such. So, I actually saw results better from that, from the lifestyle changes than from the numbers showing when I was just getting my medication. Right. And so, it's actually overcoming the supposed like just incurable thing that you have that, just can't be fixed. And, my metabolism has been, I know, a lot better, just as far as like, I'm able to make changes, and it directly influences how my metabolic function works. Right. And so, I'm just able to like get to the point where I'm eating like there could be days where I need more energy if I just eat more of the right foods. Right. But if I just eat more, I can actually get more energy. And they would call this like a surplus, or like a caloric, like, being in a caloric state in which you can't burn this off, and there's just too much energy and you're going to gain weight. But it just comes to give me more energy, and then I'm like, wow, I just feel like so much better as far as what I want to do in life. And so to follow this sort of like restrictive way of thinking, where it's like, oh well, I better be in a caloric deficit if I ever want to lose weight. I better be in like this low calorie diet if I want to live longer, because they even think that increased metabolism is a problem for lifespan, because they think you'll burn out the flame of your candle, right? Whereas you are consistently giving yourself energy. You actually are thriving more when you're giving yourself that energy. And let's say, even like I heard this point, like even if like it increased or it decreased the lifespan slightly, you're living a far more quality life than you would otherwise. It's not the case, but you would be living a far more quality life than being in this state of like no pain, no gain, and then just continually abusing yourself.
Yeah. And fear is never going to be a good way to change things. Like if you're always just living because of some fear of something else. So absolutely going with the solution, and then following it through, and doing what you enjoy. I'm very disciplined to what I eat. I'm very disciplined. And I know everything that's in the food that I eat, pretty much. I can dissect everything. I remember ingredients. That's how I got into everything. I mean, I was 13 years old and researching ingredients at the grocery store. That's how I got into everything. And then from there, I found out the corruption in the medical industry and became a health coach, and then found out naturally freedom was being compromised, and that freedom was the more important subject to discuss regarding our health and literally everything. So I shifted my priorities to that. But of course, health is still important to me. And, it's like, as a kid, I understood this. Like, yeah, there's stuff in our food supply that's a problem. And I felt it. I felt the difference. I wasn't getting sick anymore. It's like, whoa, what's up with that? All these people around me are getting sick like every single month, every single week. It's like, what's going on, right? It's like, clearly I'm not, and I didn't even change much. Like at that point, I didn't even do anything except make sure my food was clean. I wasn't even paying attention to what I was eating. I was just making sure it was real food.
Yeah.
And like that alone was like a big leap, because so much of what it was before was processed food. Like I grew up eating Lucky Charms because I thought it would make me lucky. I was one to follow. I followed the orders of everybody. The doctors, the teachers, I believed every word. When they said to me that germs were bad in school, I became a germophobic. Every time somebody sneezed, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Using the hand sanitizer that's killing the bacteria on your hands.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, wait, now I see bacteria is good. Like now I eat raw meat. Like what is that? It's like the total opposite of what
that's
people.
Great.
Yeah, I do like tartar and raw fish and raw eggs and raw kefir. I do all that, raw honey. And, again, local sources, which anybody can access from anywhere, and getting full, complete nutrition and fully digestible, bioavailable nutrition. It's incredible. And that stuff, is not taught in schools. You mentioned Paul Saladino. He has the name Salad in his last name, which everybody's like, you got to take that out. But he came out of medical school and he disagreed with everything they taught him. So it's like pretty funny. He went on the doctors, and then of course they bashed him really hard on TV. It was like, oh, look at this guy eating, promoting the carnivore diet. This is going to give you heart disease. It's like, meanwhile, all the stuff on paleo, keto, carnivore is contradicting the science that was approved in the 80s and the 90s and the 70s of you got to eat more carbohydrates and you got to eat more grains and make sure you get your daily serving of grains. And it's like all that's now being challenged. Margarine, we got to replace butter. We got to replace it with seed oils. Like, yeah, see where that led. It led to trans fats and hidden trans fats that led to heart disease. And even Obama had to ban trans fats in 2008, but the companies found still a way to put it in the food supply. It's like, it's very easy to see where things are leading because there's so much ignorance and order following going on. But it's very easy to also engage in the solution because of it, which is like, again, abundance everywhere. There's solutions everywhere we look, online and in nature, and it's all about how we use it. So absolutely, man, it's good stuff.
And as far as Saladino goes, I would recommend his shows that he did with this guy, Georgi Dinkov. Very educated man. He's like from the Ray Peat sphere. It's incredible. I would recommend all 3 episodes, honestly, to you as well, Cory. I know Saladino has some other good content. I mean, like on his, like, let's say like balding stuff, like he talks about like it's an issue of nutrient absorption. Like he's coming from this free will perspective as well. And also like weight loss. He talks about calories in, calories out, and how it's kind of bogus to say like, hey, you just take in these calories and then the body just outputs them exactly as they're taken in. And therefore, that's why calorie restriction makes sense. The psycho, or psycho, I don't even know how you say it, but I guess it's psycho because I saw somebody say like CICO, psychopaths are like how these people think, because it's like, they're just thinking, hey, it's thermodynamics, man. Like, it doesn't matter what the quality of the food is. That doesn't affect how much you burn. That doesn't really affect like your metabolism or your metabolic rate. Like, and yet, there's just so much, like, I mean, honestly, you can just practice this and see the contrary, like of that this isn't true. These people that are talking about this are starving themselves. These people are forcing their bodies to look a certain way, whereas they're not probably feeling the best. Who knows what their testosterone looks like? Who knows what the other things, like their other like their thyroid function? Who knows what a lot of these things are like? Who knows what their digestive is or digestion is like? Any of this, right?
Yeah, I mean, just observe people who cut out sugar for a week, right? Somebody in my chat just mentioned that, how they did fasting and they cut out carbs and sugar, and then the cravings went away, no yeast left. They did a full fast to clear the intestines of food for 24 hours. Yeah, and there's different ways to do fast, right? There's so many methods that people can use for their health, which is why I wrote a pretty big health book that I don't share much, because I wrote it really early on before my works on freedom. So it's not as refined and polished, I would say, but it has like literally thousands of solutions in that book covering every single topic. And I have dedicated chapters to fasting, dedicated chapters to water and hydration and all sorts of things. Because even water, it's like kefir and milk and juicing, and it's like way better. It's like, what's up with that? Everybody thought, oh, drink more water, drink more water. It's like, that's not actually hydrating you. What's up? Like, clearly everything that we thought was true is being challenged. And when you realize one thing, everything else starts to open up, right? So that's the thing with the college campuses too. It's like, if I meet people from where they're at, what they're concerned with, I guarantee you there's something I could share with them that would make them go, whoa. That would like open their mind at least a little bit to say, wait, things are not as they are. And then really, as somebody's mind opens, then they're willing to learn about everything else. They want to learn about everything else. I mean, when you get into health, it's like, oh, I don't want to restrict my body of this or that, but you can want to be healthy. You can want to change your diet if you go down the path that serves you, in listening with your body and actually listening to your environment and looking around you and saying, well, look at all these different people and their ways of eating. How can I discern? How can I say that this works for this person for this reason and this works for this person for that reason? Why is it, that veganism works for this person and keto works for that person? Why is that? We have to be able to study this as a philosopher and not say, well, they're wrong. They're eventually just going to end up with problems, and then this person is right. No, it doesn't work like that. Humans try to get such a grasp on reality, and reality just kicks them back in the butt to say, stop having a grasp on truth, because the minute they grasp it, it falls out of their hands. The Tao Te Ching has a phrase about that. It's like, you try to grasp water. Water is usually symbolically said as the Tao. that yin passive, like that's force that's always there, and it just falls out of your hands because it's the thing that the path of least resistance, that thing that always falls, that doesn't seek power. It's that humility, the lack of ego. That's what we're trying to attain. You can't try to attain it. You simply live your own lives. You be yourself, and that's how you attain it. It's quite a paradoxical reality sometimes we live in, but it's simply being able to discern, which is why people like Jordan Peterson and Carl Jung are so fascinating to so many people, because they're able to navigate the paradoxes and polarities of the world and be able to deliver it to a modern audience. And so I love their work, and a lot of them speak our language. You think they're voluntarist, but they never heard of the term. My goal is to hopefully bring that to them. I'm working on medical projects with tons of literature, and I hope to share it with people like Jordan Peterson. And even better, if I can meet him at the environment that he's at, going to college campuses. Think about that. Pretty crazy. I would love for you to join me. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I figured, like, I didn't know we were so close. So, now knowing that, there has to be something, right? But yeah, let's just check out some comments here. We got Jason the Geotech saying Ahmed was a GOAT leader. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And we have oddities and rarities. Yeah. We have oddities and rarities saying the death of Elvis is the perfect example of treating the symptoms instead of the root cause. They gave him pills to get rid of the side effects of the pills and pills for those, and so on and so on. Yeah, well, that's medicine for you in today's world, right? Let's see. We got Humvee 94 saying, "What are you drinking?" I love myself some orange juice. That I mean, fresh squeezed is obviously better. It's honestly beyond better compared to the like bottled stuff, but you can find some bottled stuff that isn't too bad.
I was curious. I was going to ask that same question. I was drinking orange juice literally right before the show, like freshly squeezed, using my juicer, and but this is just water. But not just water, has fulvic acid in it, which is like minerals to restore the water. It's basically the part of the natural spring that gets taken out of our water.
Mm-hmm. I actually I have a reverse osmosis filter for my water. I actually run it through that, and then I add just salt. Like I use Redmond's. I don't know if you know that brand. Yeah. I add Redmond's back into the water just to remineralize it, and it's very. I mean, I do not prefer to drink water as my main source of hydration because it honestly doesn't give me that sense of hydration, especially if there's no salt in it. But if there is salt in it, it is preferable to the water itself. But I do like juice, especially fresh. Like that's better than anything. Though sometimes it is a little bit convenient for me to just get the store-bought juice as long as it doesn't have a bunch of ingredients in it. Like if it's just the juice, like it'll say fresh, at most. I really don't think it's too harmful just because like it really, like if it may denature some of the vitamins and such, but like you may have a different perspective. You may have a different perspective on that. I really don't think it's terrible for you. I would say maybe the biggest concern is maybe like plastic if it's in that.
No, the pasteurization would be my biggest concern.
I think that has more of a negative effect on milk than juice, I would say.
Okay. Well,
yeah, I mean, I like from what I've seen. I mean, honestly,
good,
as far as like health effects of it and such, I do like low, like, well, I can't get raw milk, but like if you've been to Sprouts, they have they have a low temperature pasteurized, non-homogenized milk at Sprouts. I love that. That is incredible. That is incredible. But
wait, you're in Central Florida. What do you mean you can't get raw milk? What are you talking about?
It's, the sourcing is kind of difficult. It's like you have to, like, I try with these raw milk websites, and then they like, they don't give me everywhere like that's close to me. Like it's only people that sign up for the site. It's a little, tricky. It's not impossible. It's not too difficult, but it is a little bit tricky to navigate. So, but I've gotten better at it. I do know of a place that's not too far, but it is a little bit far. It's like inconvenient going that far out for it, so I would have to buy a lot at a time.
Makes sense. I feel like there'd be a lot more of that near you than me, actually,
really?
because I'm near closer to the cities, and I think you're more in the country area.
We have James saying eat the bugs.
Hey, it's quite funny if you look into WildFed. Do you know the guy Daniel Vitalis? You know who that is?
I don't think I do.
So he's got a show, and it's really awesome. Talk about a guy who really knows about nutrition and health. He's been heavily invested into it for like the past 20 plus years, and such a great high energy. He's got a whole TV show that he does where he goes into the wild and he's able to live off of the land and anything. So he eats bugs, but he tells people it's not like the bugs that they are trying to give people in the foods, because our ancestors, the tribes, would eat bugs and they would cook them up like fish, and like they would turn red, like the crickets or whatever. Sometimes I think he said crickets or what was it, grasshoppers that taste like lobster or something like that. They call it the the lobster of the land or something like that. But this guy is genius. He can identify every plant, every animal, and say this was a hybrid of this is a hybrid of that, this is not natural, and he's able to decipher that for everything. And he's just got such a deep understanding of the natural world. So I really wanted to get into that series because that highly interests me. And maybe we can do like a watch party or something one day.
Yeah,
But
that would be cool.
yeah, right. Imagine that'd be pretty
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, his work was just fascinating to me. Talking about that because he says it's like that type of environment of like they're trying to give you bugs. Those are lab made bugs. You know, they're put in a lab made condition. The same way
Yeah.
we talk about lab meat versus natural meat. They're two totally separate things. There's people
So-
in Mexico where it's like a delicacy to
Mhm.
eat bugs, and I
Is
have
it a matter
neighbors
of-
who are from Mexico.
Is it a matter of like feeding at that point, an environment that they're in?
Yes.
Okay, because I mean, I have heard that it depends on the bug because like even the type of bug could just be harder to digest than compared to like other animal sources of food.
Yeah.
So that could be a problem.
Even in the chat, someone says human bodies can't digest the chitin or
Yeah.
I think chitin. That's true as well. And Dr. Berg did a video on that about eating the bugs, and he has pretty good content online. I know he's involved with Scientology. That's questionable.
And
I
was gonna say
really good videos.
I was going to say, I believe chitin is the reason that some people can't eat like shellfish as opposed to actually having an iodine issue. So a lot of the times if they have an allergy to the shellfish, it may not even be the fact that like you have some sort of iodine problem. Iodine, like I really don't know how common that would actually be to be allergic to that.
Yeah. See, it's funny when you come from like a health coach point of view, which is, you know, where I come from. It's like I'm honest with what I know and what I don't know. If somebody says, "Oh, I have this problem that is like 3 words long," it's like super long. It's like, "What is that? Do you want to tell me what that is? Like what your doctor told you what it is?" And then, you know, I can research about the idea, but really I don't need to. I can simply just ask them questions and then
Right.
find out the problems without even knowing exactly what their doctor told them. You know, it's like I can investigate by just being a detective and asking high mileage questions and really getting down to it. And eventually I can find the problem, even though I didn't know anything about it. And that's what's beautiful about being like supportive and rather than authoritative.
Right.
That type of approach is very radically different. And often it's associated with Eastern medicine, you know, as opposed to West. But frankly, the East is doing it too in many ways. And I don't like to differentiate those two realms. I mean, I talk about Taoism. It's like the first anarchist philosophy in history that comes from China, ancient China. But look at modern day China. It's probably the most totalitarian regime on earth at the moment. And of course, they censor a lot of materials to make them look good. And people have talked about this, you know, to try to make their brand look like, oh, well, we're not that bad and we're better than America. But they keep a lot of things hidden and they suppress Taoist literature and philosophy. In the 70s, the atheist government basically burned a bunch of Buddhist and Taoist materials. A lot of Taoist materials is very anti-authority. So they have to keep a close watch on Taoism. And that's why it's growing very fast in the West. People like George Thompson, Jason Gregory are teaching these ideas of Taoism. And, you know, now there's natural law coming back, the deists, you know, which were like between atheism and religion. A lot of this stuff is coming back in different ways. And I love to see all these communities. The carnivore, all that is coming back. You know, the truth always finds its way to resurface one way or another. And that truth is not stagnant. And that truth is not one way. That truth is simply showing people the bigger picture in all the different ways. So you can pick the best route for yourself. That's what I find amazing with it.
Cory, I think I can summarize this for you.
Sure,
the East has fallen. Billions must tow.
What? Say it one more time.
The East has fallen. Billions must tow.
Billions must tow?
Yes.
Billions must go follow the way?
Yes. Okay, so we have a Humvee asking, I want to eat these fruits. What are they called? So could you give them those again?
The fruits? What fruits?
Yeah, the ones that you were saying where it tasted like I think you mentioned cotton candy
pudding.
mango. Yeah, and then the chocolate pudding one. He wants to taste something really good when he eats this fruit, of course.
Okay, I mean, there's literally so many. I would, if wherever you live, guys, look up native perennial plants. These are plants you put in the ground; they'll last for over 2,000 years. You put them in.
Let me just give a frame of reference, not to dox this guy, but he's not too far off from our general vicinity. Okay, same state. Okay, at least. Okay. So, but can you give some recommendations for this area?
Right. Yeah. Sick. Okay, so Okinawa spinach, longevity spinach, for your leafy greens, if you want them just to have them, they grow so easy. I guarantee you, if you know nothing about gardening or permaculture, you just throw them in the ground, they grow. Um, so I had to throw that one out there. Cranberry hibiscus, same thing. Now that one actually tastes pretty good, and it's like a fully edible leaf that is a hibiscus, and you can make tea out of it and everything. It's awesome. It tastes like cranberries and everything. Super cool. There's chocolate sapote. That's the one I mentioned. That is, I don't know if that's native here, but I know a lot of people grow it, and I've been to different farms where they've done it, and apparently it tastes like chocolate pudding. Now I'm gonna put that to the test, okay? Because I just put one in the ground in my backyard. I don't know if it tastes like chocolate pudding, but everybody says, a lot of people say it does. Then there, of course, there's cotton candy mango. I think I've tried that one before. There's literally been like I've been introduced to so many plants over the past year, just getting into permaculture unexpectedly, that I've just like been blown away. And so I guarantee you, probably like 3 or 5 years from now, I'm gonna know all these things by heart, and I'll be able to say, "Yep, this tastes good, and this one's the best one to pick." But right now, I'm still learning, and I'll be honest, there's so many plants that we're not taught about that we can grow. It's just unbelievable. Um, but yeah, let's see things that taste good. I mean, mango, all the fruit trees. You can grow everything here, dude. You're in Florida. You got like awesome soil. Yeah, we might flood one day. We live on an island, and so many people are moving here. And we probably have to, you know, worry about that. But at the same time, you can grow pretty much everything. Bananas, blue Java banana. Look into that. Ice cream banana comes from Hawaii, and it's a blue banana. We actually have one that's growing and it's doing really well, and it's popping off real hard. And we're gonna have ice cream bananas soon. Isn't that crazy? So apparently, it's like a banana that tastes like ice cream or vanilla. So that will be interesting. Now, the only problem with this, right? Because we're talking about health and nutrition and talking about the ins and outs. A lot of these plants haven't necessarily been studied. Like, we don't know how many anti-nutrients are in some of these plants. If you look up longevity spinach, it's touted as this plant in Asia, it translates to a plant that cures over 100 different diseases. That's what it translates to. And so that's amazing. But we have like no information about it online. There's no nutrition information about it. There's barely anything out there. So there are questions about perhaps the safety and the anti nutrients with stuff like that, because we know spinach is very high in oxalates. So that's the only thing that concerns me. But at the same time, I'm like, well, if these are the plants that are not really known about or talked about and are translated to things like that, curing over 100 different diseases, then there's probably something there that we need to look into, right? So I just find that something quite peculiar.
I mean, it seems to be very much so a matter of the vitamin content.
Hmm.
So if you are avoiding that because you don't want to like get kidney stones, like if you are fearing that, like there are ways to get that in other places of the diet, maybe not in as high, depending on the nutrient, right? Depending, maybe not in as high of a value. There is a potential that you could supplement it in some way, through a clean source, but that doesn't mean that you eat spinach and automatically you get kidney stones. Though I would just be me personally, I'd be more cautious about that, but more specifically about like the goitrogenic impact of it on the thyroid. That would be like my main concern. I would say that doesn't mean I would never touch a green, but it would make me a lot more averse to it.
Yeah.
So, but I do love fruit. Like fruit is like the least, like as Saladino says, it's like the least defended plant food, especially when ripe. Especially when ripe. So I mean, I love fruits. Like I love eating any kind of fruit basically. I'm not big on bananas, but the rest of fruit for the most part, or avocados, but the rest of fruit for the most part for me, I really do enjoy.
Yeah, it's awesome, dude. It's a whole journey exploring all this stuff. It inspires me a lot because it's like, ooh, this is cool. And you just put it in the ground and it grows here. Florida, we got real good soil. So if you live here, you're pretty darn lucky. If I did this in Pennsylvania, it's like, oh, rock, rock, rock. It's like, gonna throw dynamite into the earth before you can start planting anything. Because it's like all rocks. But no, it depends on where you are. Pennsylvania was huge, and I was near the mountains. It was like apparently it was an old potato farm, but we didn't do anything with it because I knew nothing about it, and I had no interest in at the time. No one inspired me. I was not inspired. I didn't. I was like, growing food, yeah. But it's like now I see why it's so essential because I met someone like Jim Gale who's putting in action, showing by example. And if you guys don't know about him, by the way, foodforestabundance.com. And he's also got galtzlanding.farm. And you're closer to him probably than me. So you can probably check out his place. Actually, I could let you know the next time I visit. Maybe you can visit with me. It'd be cool for you to meet him. But yeah, we might go
Yeah,
fishing
just
or something.
keep in touch for sure. I mean, like, I'll say whether I'm free or not, and from there we could do anything basically.
Cool.
Always down to have like that sort of novelty, like in having like fun times, just doing stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that's what life's
It's
about.
very good for the dopamine. It's very good for the dopamine. So
That's
that's
what
great.
life's about, man.
Yeah, exactly. Novel experiences and such. We have James saying, I do a lot of self study and it certainly helps my mental health through tough times. That's great.
Yeah.
We have oddities and rarities. Being fat and bloated and dying on the toilet is kind of an American tradition.
Yep. I mean,
Unfortunately.
when I was 13 or so researching ingredients, I was pretty obese, like heavy as
Yeah.
a child. And people were like surprised to hear I was heavy as a child, but I was. And my parents kept me on a good mindset to where I never put myself down, which I really thank them for that. Because I never said, "Oh, I'm fat," and I let other kids bully me and let that get to me, because they did bully me for my obesity, but I didn't let that get to me. And over time, just by learning and exercising and eating better, I just lost the weight naturally. And perhaps it was part of my growth too.
Yeah.
But I went through a major transformation. Let me tell you, going from crazy order follower, obese, eating all the junk American food diet to not even eating a single fruit. I didn't eat a single salad. I refused to eat anything healthy. And now it's like, you know, and when
Yeah.
I say healthy, of course, I'm not referring to just fruit and vegetables. That's, of course, something we distinguished before. But, you get the point.
I'm glad you're not a vegan because, it's definitely, I mean, that's another dogmatic way of thinking, right? And it's not that like, those people don't want to find health for themselves either. It's like they think that this is the way to do it. It's just, they come to these conclusions based on thinking like that the studies are right about animal meat and such, and like all these like conclusions about animal foods where it's like there may be something else in your diet that's actually causing the issues that you've been facing, or there may be something else in the environment that may be causing the issues just based alone on the fact that humans have been eating animal foods like throughout their entire existence, and we haven't seen the same problems that we are today. So maybe it's not that specifically. And people have been eating plant foods long enough for it to not be the main cause of what we're experiencing today. I wouldn't put the blame on plant foods for causing all of these issues we see in health, right? There's obviously like manufactured processed like foods and seed oils that have been novel to humanity and have actually, we've been seeing at the same time all of this obesity being caused. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, maybe we should consider the things that are recent in our environment and in our diet as far as what's happening here. It's not a matter of like carbohydrates, because carbohydrates have like always been a part of the human diet, so at the same time, I wouldn't say like, oh, well, keto is like the way to be, you have to eat that way, because, again, that's not something that was causing people this same level of sickness before. So there's clearly something new that, that the blame probably would be better put on. Yeah. So let's see. We have Into the Agora asking about Botox, and I actually did have something pulled up on this because I did want to comment on it, because he's like, well, what, like Botox is pretty terrible, but how is it poisoning your body? Look this up. It's I guess botulism. I don't know if you say botulism or botulism, whatever. A rare poisoning caused by toxins produced by the Clostridium botulinum bacteria. Botulism can be fatal and requires emergency medical care. It can occur in infants, be spread by food, or infect a wound. Symptoms include difficulty swallowing or speaking, facial weakness, and paralysis. So this is a rare poisoning. We're not talking about the Botox just yet, but when you look at what Botox is, it's botulinum toxin injections. So it's actually this thing that causes the paralysis and this sort of poisoning that's literally being inserted into the skin to have that effect. And so botulinum toxin injections are made from the same toxin that causes a type of neurological condition called botulism. The toxin attacks the body's nerve cells, causing muscle paralysis, especially facial muscles of the eyes, face, and mouth, before spreading to the arms and legs. So it actually is not healthy to get Botox injections. It actually is just literally using that toxin to simulate the same effect, just maybe not in as great of a quantity.
Yeah, isn't that interesting, right? A lot of the things we might say are healthy or beneficial can be quite the opposite. Like the same thing with looking into antioxidants and seeing, wait, there's some studies that prove antioxidants can actually be harmful,
Yeah.
and that some of it is just plant defense mechanisms. And again, I wasn't taught this in nutrition when I was in both my nutrition schools. None of them even mentioned anti-nutrients, nonetheless raw animal products. So that to me was just crazy, because I had to look all into that by myself. Even more crazy is the fact it's illegal in most places still to get like raw milk, for example, including Florida. It's only for pet consumption. So there's a lot of pets who love raw milk in this state. I knew somebody who actually helped with that. They're like, yeah, pets are loving raw milk here in this state because he knows pets are not the only ones consuming it, but they can't really prevent it. They're literally, the farmers around here are constantly sold out of raw milk, constantly. It's like the amount of market demand for that is crazy. And yet it's still illegal, but nobody cares. They're still going to defy the law. So isn't that crazy that people are defying the law without even recognizing it, probably here in Florida? And there's probably a bunch of other examples, like you can't bike on the sidewalks using a certain type of electric bike at a certain parameter. It's like a cop is not going to look at your bike and how fast it goes. But why is this written down as a law? Like, this is just so stupid. Can't collect rainwater in Pennsylvania. Hello?
Well, we're at the point where you just can't avoid breaking laws anyway in your daily life. Even just being a normal person that's like a do-gooder in the eyes of the state, it's like this person's still breaking laws because there's just no way to not do it. Honestly, there's just no way to live and not do it. And there's this example given. I like, it's like when it comes to competition in the market, I forgot exactly how it goes, but it was basically like if you're overcharging, supposedly compared to others, you're price gouging, or like if you're charging below. I think it was like I forgot what it was, but it had to do with like undermining the competition. I forgot what the term for it was, but there's like a term for that as well. And then when you're at the same price, you're basically colluding and you're price fixing, right? So no matter what you do, you're here manipulating the market with these prices that you put on your product. And so no matter what, you're basically breaking the law, in the eyes of the state. Really, they'll just enforce what they want to because they see it as a need to control, like, oh, well, we have more of a priority to do this for this other factor that's important for maintaining our control. So, you can see whatever paradoxical laws on the books. It really just comes down to what the state wants to enforce as far as like what's, I guess, organizationally necessary for it to.
AKA how much people are ignorant of what's going on and are not in control of their own food supply. Because it's a parallel type of way. Their actions are based on our actions. Our actions are based on their actions. It's a give and get scenario.
I would say it's a matter of not just that the state is aware that you're aware, but that the state is trying to subvert your ability to do something and they just can't. They have no ability to do it because of the actions being taken have just made it like not possible to enforce the law. Yep. That's like the best way to go about it. Hold on. So we have Into the Agora saying he's using my key fob example. Let's go. I did that earlier. We have Ignis in the chat for the first time in some time. He's saying, chat, rate the haircuts, mutilation or Riz? And this was a conversation we were having in my Discord where, first of all, Cory has a very Riz-like haircut. We can't knock Cory's hair. It's majestic. But here's the thing, like we were having a chat about like tattoos, and basically I, was saying that there's a problem with them, I was saying from an aesthetic perspective, but as well because of the, I guess part of the logical explanation against them would be like effects from the ink, like being in the skin. But there was somebody basically comparing it to, well, you can't really say like aesthetically it's some sort of mutilation because, why wouldn't you say that about hair or nails? And I'm like, well, those are, when you think about it, those are just maintenance. I would say it's probably good to grow out your hair to some extent. I would think it's like some sort of antenna to the external world and the sun and all that. It's probably good naturally for you to have that, though probably nails, if you leave them too long, they're gonna like ingrow or something or cause more issues for you. But point being is like, that's really just grooming. That's really just maintenance. That's something that's in line with your body's functions. I wouldn't really say a tattoo is, not to like, say like it's so over for you, you can't do anything about it, like about the toxins or whatever once they're there. But it's just more of an idea of like, obviously there are things that are societally seen as acceptable that may still not be the best choice for you to have, or engage in or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, the haircuts are too fire. You can't call them mutilation.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, I came down to Florida and I'm like, wow, all these guys got long hair. I'm not the only one. Thank goodness. Up north, it's like everybody's got beards, Down here, it's like everybody's got long hair and they don't have beards. It's like, that's quite interesting. I actually always had short hair my whole life, so I only started growing it out a couple years ago. Probably that's all anybody's ever seen me online. But if you saw me in 2016, I looked like that poster child of the conservative, white male Trump supporter. I literally was the poster child. Like people walked up to me when I was at a Trump rally and they were like, you should run for president one day. It's like that was what was happening. And I had every single talking point to support Trump. I knew everything about the guy. I had like his
Same.
water bottle. I opened up the door at the polls, like every little thing.
Well, I didn't have the water bottle, but I probably had a hat or something, so there we go. Same thing.
Yeah, but I got out of that,
Yeah.
because being a truth seeker, I'm not going to stay stuck on one way. And also, again, being a practitioner, it's just, I'm not going to have that agenda and that bias. I'm going to try to heal the world and get to the root cause. The root cause is statism, which I never heard of before, and once I heard about that and I started asking questions, it's like, wow, everything opened up for me. So that's just so you know, my journey in a nutshell.
Yeah. So we have Into the Agora asking, or not asking, he has a question after this though. I guess a few chats later, because he has a lot of things that he's saying here. But first of all, he was saying a lot of them not recommending natural solutions has a lot to do with them wanting to make money off of selling you drugs. And yeah, that's pretty clear, right? That is pretty obvious to us. And then he told me, I don't think I told you, Ahmed, but both my parents are on a carb-free diet, which to me, I don't agree with doing that for the most part. I mean, I think like I did see a guy who did like, because I had been against like keto completely for a long time, though I did see a guy who had pretty good results doing a cream-based keto, where most of what he's consuming in the day is heavy cream, surprisingly. And then he has like a meat-based dish once a day with like some vegetables. And then like, that's his day. Like he has a lot of coffee with it, but the cream actually has been like supporting it to the point where, there's a lot of people on keto where their T3 levels aren't actually good, like their TSH, like their thyroid levels, their temperature, but his temperature is very good. His rising temperature and everything throughout the day is like very good. His TSH is actually very low, surprisingly. Like it's actually extremely low, to the point where it's like, wow, this guy must feel incredible. And
hey, but what's going on in his life? What's his relationships? What's his exercise? What's his spirituality? What's his career? Like, what is all these other factors we don't know, right? And then also, what's his Ayurvedic body type? What's his blood type? Like, there's so many other things. And I know some people may not like one or another. Or they won't, they only want to focus in on one of these. But if you look at all of these as a health coach, like that's what I would do. Then I can be able to say, wow, this is why the person is doing so well, regardless of what they're eating sometimes. Like, somebody can have a really bad diet, but because they have a really good like home life, then they can still thrive a lot. Because to me, that matters a lot. It's like we put so much emphasis on food, but sometimes it can be as simple as your posture. It could be as simple, like I said, as like the way you sleep. It could be literally the room around you, feng shui, looking into how that affects the mind and the psyche, right? Like right now, this room isn't so good because there's a bed next to a desk. Usually the office is separate from the bedroom. So somehow you have to separate the two sections. That's just an example, right? Or you have to put this in a command position. Right now, this is bad because the door is behind me. So I'm right now giving you a perfect example of what not to do. Okay. But what I can do to fix it, which I'm actually in the process of doing, is getting a mirror to put in front of me, because that allows me to see the door behind me. It's all psychology. It sounds weird at first, but when you start looking into it, you're like, wow, feng shui is quite powerful, because some people will use this in businesses and organizations. And that's why they tend to get very successful, because they create an opening environment, or an environment that allows productivity rather than one that makes you lazy or feel uninspired. So it can be as simple as your environment and the way you structure things. It could be every little thing, but one at a time, because you can get overwhelmed, right? Looking into health and all this stuff. Add in, crowd out the bad. That's how it works.
Well, I guess to push back and then to agree, like,
Yeah, do it.
Like I'm going to do it one way and then the other. So, more so like, I think, you wouldn't disagree that sort of like these things can be limiting factors, or I guess like mitigating as far as the amount of energy you possibly could have, or the potential you could have. And so, even so, like the diet could just be like the sort of base level thing, or like the fundamental like laying of the groundwork in order to achieve greater. And that doesn't mean you make health your North Star, but that means you sort of do until you have the ability to do greater, right? Yep. And so I wouldn't say that necessarily like, I don't jump straight to saying, well, there must, not saying that you are, but I'm just saying I don't jump to straight to saying there must be something else. I sort of attribute it to what the person's eating as much as I can, just to see how that works for them and why that would work before I sort of go investigating in other areas. And so, I see why this diet would work for him. He gives out a big like explanation laying out why he even does what he does as far as the version of keto. I see him talking about how others are doing keto and why it may be working better for him than others. And why his ketones are actually higher than some people that are on a higher protein keto. And just a lot of other factors. Like, and so I'm able to sort of like come to the logical conclusion, like, well, maybe I wasn't completely right about keto, but maybe I was right about certain aspects of keto. And maybe I was right about them not being the best. And maybe I was like, maybe this is why, there might be a way to do a lot of different diets just in a better way depending on how you do them. So like even veganism, like you don't like if you're not going to die if you don't eat animal meat, but it may not be the best for a lot of vegans because they're not getting a lot of nutrients that they need, but there are plenty of nutritious foods that they're probably just not focusing on, because they're told the veggies are what you need to eat most of. But I mean, you could eat a lot of fruit, like a very fruit, because I as far as I'm aware, there's a more like fruitarian version of the vegan diet, not just in general, but I just mean that there's like more of a community surrounding that. I forgot exactly who it was attributed to, but he's doing a lot better on it than a lot of other vegans are. And so, like a very fruit-based diet, eating more saturated fat from like coconut oil, and just, getting a lot of these different things from different aspects. Like I could probably build myself a way of eating vegan that's a lot better than just the standard diet of eating vegan, right? Same with keto, same with a lot of these things. And it just depends on how it's being done, attributing like certain aspects of the nutrition to the foods and then understanding that from there. But I guess to agree with you a little bit beyond that, I do think you could be in a state better than somebody else even eating the same foods, because a lot of the time it does come with outlook on life. It does come with, other aspects of how well you're doing, and other factors, because like having those novel experiences, having those good family relationships, that's going to be good for your dopamine. That's going to be good for your hormone production. And so there are a lot of ways in which you could still be better. Like I know there's somebody who pointed to examples, like a couple of examples of celebrities that are like this, DJ Khaled and Donald Trump. Like DJ Khaled is a guy who's actually very fat. He eats a lot of terrible food, but he's always so energetic in his videos. Like he always seems to be like ready to do something. Trump is a very spry guy for his age. So like, but he eats fast food a lot anyway. He thinks that eating fast food is actually good because, then people can't really tamper with it. He knows what's in it. He can go to Chick-fil-A or McDonald's and be like, I want that. So like these people can eat these like really unhealthy foods, but they have so much else going for them that it kind of just mitigates those like negative aspects of those foods. I think for somebody that's in a negative mental state eating that, it's going to be a lot worse for that person than these people.
Right. Exactly. When I mentioned cravings before, that's what will happen is like, where did the cravings come from? And again, projection, right? So where are the projections coming from? Usually there's something that isn't being addressed or something that isn't seen very easily. So you have to like investigate. So it could be a bad relationship that's causing someone to eat a lot of ice cream or eat a lot of candy or sugar or something sweet. It's like, it could be all sorts of different things. That if you don't address that, it could be that's where the integrative nutrition comes in, right? That's where the practitioner comes in. But yeah, as a general rule of advice, I think you shared a lot of really good strategies and ideas. And isn't this incredible? Like this is the type of conversation that we can bring to the colleges and universities. I mean, not that they would accept it, not that they'd be welcoming to it, but yeah, I think the students would be interested. They some of them who care about their health. Not everybody's going to care about health, but I guarantee you, there's one subject. I have a list of subjects. I have a whole plan. I'll share this with you. But I have a whole list of subjects, and I guarantee you, there's at least one thing that somebody's concerned about. And it's like, wow, what could we do with conversation? Just us two. The conversation has led to so many different avenues. And so imagine if you bring together like 10 plus people, the conversation will turn into a whole thing, and you don't need an expert psychologist or a dietitian in the room. You now have 10 people who can discern and decipher between each other and find out the best ideas. I mean, it depends on how you approach it. And I think that's a good way of doing it. And it gets more people involved, and it shows more by example, and it gets people more inspired because they're doing it together. So yeah, it's pretty good.
So he's saying basically about his parents, and they eat a lot of meat-based foods, and they've also done quite a bit of fasting and generally stay away from processed foods, and they've lost so much weight, it's insane. Well, see, the thing is, like, the common factor there between a lot of other diets is lacking the processed foods. It's not to say that like meat-based is like the way to go for everybody, because like, I mean, just only eating meat-based foods, because there could be other things that, some people like, there could be reasons it's not working as well, just because like methionine balance with like the glycine, just not really balancing the amino acids in the meat with gelatin could be an issue for some people. Like I know there were like studies on rats they did, like where if the rats didn't get enough glycine compared to their methionine and cysteine and tryptophan, that it would actually be negative for their aging and such. And so when they would actually balance it with the gelatin, which you can get if you're eating meat from the cuts of like, fat and connective tissue, right? You're like eating that, and that's helpful, as opposed to eating like a filet mignon, which is sort of like the junk food of steak. You're actually helping yourself out a lot there with that. I've seen like reason to believe that if anything, like a protein fast, like a version of that can actually help. Like there's this guy, Brad Marshall, who talks about the emergence diet. He talks about how hibernation and how like it works in nature usually has to do with like humans that are obese are sort of in a torpid state, like a hibernative state. And what they could do to get out of it is to actually restrict protein intake closer to what the American diet was prior to all of the processed food, when people were actually eating better and were leaner and were healthier. They actually had a lower protein intake than now. And, you know, obese people actually, like, while protein can be thermogenic for somebody that can process it properly and actually be like, what I mean by that is like heat inducing, pro-metabolic, for obese people, it could actually be mitigating to that. And, you know, the reason you could lose weight on the high protein diet, or, you know, whatever, you're feeling satiated, you're obviously eating less calories, which is going to cause like a like bodily weight loss overall. Like, you know, when it comes to, not necessarily, but just in the sense of like you're already eating these vitamin rich foods and then you're feeling satiated from them. So you're not feeling the cravings for the junk food, and that's why you're staying away from it. It's not really like the calories itself in the sense of like eat less, gain or less weight, like, or eat less, lose weight, I should say. Like, you know, because you could look into people that can actually eat more and improve in their weight because they're actually burning it off. So, you know, what I'm seeing is the common trend here is that they just are staying away from the things that were fattening, the processed foods. And then the meat is just helping them do that, as opposed to it being a case of like the meat is the absolute way to do it. And that's why it did it, you know, but meat is really good for you. I mean, you know, I do not eat probably as much as they do, I'm assuming from how you describe it. I don't know. I mean, like I would rather eat a meat diet than a processed food diet. I could say that is going to be a lot better.
David Wolf has a good comparison I always remember. He says, you have this much nutrition, you eat this much food. And if you eat this much nutrition, you eat this much food.
Yeah.
Right? So I have always used that one since. And David Wolf is very knowledgeable on a lot of different subjects too. This guy over here, dude, he's been doing his research. This dude.
I would say that holds true probably about the processed food, because I think it could be the case where, you know, I mean, you're eating these whole foods, you're eating these foods that are actually metabolically supporting. You can have this much vitamin content in this much food. You know what I mean? Like it can get to the point where you're actually eating a lot more than you thought you could in the first place and not keeping on the weight. Right. And like, for example, like chess players, it was found that when they were in tournaments, they would burn like 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day. Just doing that, using that much mental focus, because the brain burns, I think it was like 40% of your calories. It's very intensive, you know, and so, you know, obviously, like the more active your metabolism, and which is something that's again malleable, that's not something that's fixed. You know, some people are like, oh, I just have a fast metabolism. That can degrade with the food you're eating, and you can actually improve your metabolism with the food you're eating. And so, if you have a strong metabolism, a well-working metabolism, a well-oiled machine, and you're putting the right fuel into it, it's actually just burning it.
Yeah. Let's talk about how I got a bug bite near my eye. No, I was kidding. It's been stinking bothering me. Like, what got a bug bite on my eye? Am I the only person that gets bug bites all over my face and nowhere else? No, it's like seriously. But you know, hey, I've been outside. That's a good sign. But dude, this dude has been doing research. Everybody, this guy, man, you know, you've been looking into stuff like crazy. It's awesome. I love to see it. I really do. It's so cool.
I've been very invested in it because I want to learn as much as I can, just to be like, you know, I don't want to be following a path that isn't going to work for me in the long run. And so I want to be able to do that. And also I want to be able to pass that on, you know, to offspring, of course, like, you know, like, obviously that matters a lot, not just because it's the next generation, but because it's my family. And I want the best for the people that would be, you know, in my closest proximity. Right. You know, of course. And also friends. I a lot of the times I have friends asking me like, what do I do about this? What do I do about that? I sort of give them that same coaching that you do to the people that you're working with. Right. I'm just giving it to them for free. But, you know, and I probably would continue to, even if I were just a coach, I probably still would. And it sounds like you said you do too. Yeah. Because it's like, you have concern for the people in your life. You want to help them out. Obviously you do need to make a living just to support yourself. But, you know, at the same time, it's like those very closest to you. It's like, sometimes it's like, well, I just want to look out for your well-being, you know. It's like, that's what I care about. Because obviously you care so much about the emotional bond you have that you want to be able to help that person stay with you for as long as possible.
Beautiful.
And so it's a self-interest thing regardless, I would say. I don't think it's like a sort of being selfless. It's still being like in your own self-interest. It's not like, you know, you have to be like, oh, I don't care about myself, I just have to care about others. You don't have to be like that.
Well, Jim Gale and I, when we're co-authoring this book, we have a section on selfishness, and we see it in a good light. We observe that the people who are most happy in life are those who are giving to others. So they're actually selfish by giving to others because it helps them. And the people who are the most unhappy in life are those who just expect to be served all the time. So be selfish and serve others. It's quite an interesting way to look at it. But it's true. And actually, practitioners do this quite a bit too in their own projection. It's called the magic of mirroring, which is that when they're helping a patient or a client, they might help themselves in the same time. Because by studying somebody else in their life, they learn about their own life. And they're like, oh, wait, this is something I'm telling them to do, but I'm not doing it myself. Or this is something that they're having problems with, and I didn't recognize this. I didn't even consider it. So you're actually helping yourself at the same time. And sometimes, I mean, people have had experiences I've talked to a lot where they'll go to a psychologist or a therapist, and like they're helping the therapist. The therapist isn't helping them. It's like they feel like, am I here to help you, or are you here to help me? And that happens pretty often, actually. Because a lot of people need help in this world. And some people get into the medical profession because of their own personal experience and because they need help. And they're not, no one's perfect. No one's fully healthy. No one's got it all figured out. So it's awesome when you say that too, because when I first got into nutrition, that's exactly what I said. I said, this is knowledge that everybody should have. So it's like really essential, basic to know what I should eat. So whether I go down this route for my career or not, I want to learn it. That's literally what I said to myself. So that's like pretty much on key with what you said. I'm pretty darn sure. It's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
We have James Liberated saying, I only drink water and tea. I mean, I don't know if you feel good on that, but I would say probably good to salt the water if you don't feel hydrated from the water, at least. But there are a lot of other good drinks to have.
I'm kind of the same way, actually, though. I mean, I drink pretty much only water, tea, and then I guess if a smoothie counts once in a while, like a juice. I mean, does that count?
I like juice. I like smoothies, raw milk, of course, raw cream. I mean, like, or even low temp cream, because the same Kelowna that makes the low temp milk, they actually make a cream. I'll just use that for drinks. I'll put that in coffee or put that in like a shake, even like a smoothie.
Dude, Sprouts is awesome.
Yeah, it is. I love it.
Dude, up north, we didn't have Sprouts. I came down here. I'm like, what is this? A health store that's like actually the size of like Walmart or like an actual big grocery store? Like up north, we had like these tiny little health stores. They charge you like double the price of like everything. But like down here, it's like you actually have a huge demand for that. It's incredible because we didn't have that up north. I mean, we had a lot of farmers. We actually had raw milk delivered to us to our house with a milkman in glass from the Amish.
That's great.
So that's cool. And we can't get that here. And also, it was like half the price. But we didn't have like Sprouts and those types of stores. So there's always things are going to fluctuate, but I expect things to change quite a bit in the coming years when I get this book published and a bunch of other things happen.
Sprouts, also from the same people that make the raw kefir, they're actually giving them they're putting in the stores like a raw milk as well, actually. So actually it'll be more accessible now than ever, because I don't know if they're going to freeze it or what. I forgot how they do it, but they call it a pet food, just like they do the kefir, to sort of be like, oh, well, because it's within the legal limits. They're like, oh, well, if you're buying it for a pet, that's fine. And they're doing the kefir. I prefer the milk, honestly, to the kefir, but I'm definitely planning on buying some of that milk too.
Yes.
Let's see. So we have Into the Agora with a question. This was his question, and I think we can both give some input here. What are some good foods and things to make for people who work full time and often feel very unmotivated to cook every day? If you want to go on that first, maybe, or if you want me to go.
Good foods to cook full time, or people.
Well, he's saying good foods and things to make. Well, I guess make, but if there's something you can get already, I mean, like fruit, of course, you can get just already as is. It has its own wrapper and everything. Depending on the fruit, it has a peel, but that's pretty easy. But
foods that don't have a label.
He said unmotivated to cook every day. So obviously it's something that it's like, okay, well, you could give him a preparation, but it may be something like the convenience is an issue.
Well, if he's saying unmotivated to cook every day, then that assumes there's some days you might want to. I don't know if he's the type to say, hey, let's make all my meals like on one day to prepare for the other days. But I know, people who will do that, and they'll prepare every meal for the rest of the days and just have it in the fridge so that way it's ready. As you said, I think that's really important, is stuff like fruit, things that have no label at all, are foods that are readily pretty much available or easy to access, that are also very nutritious. You don't have to worry too much about preparation. So like fruit is great for that. Absolutely. And it's easy to digest. You don't have to worry about having digestion problems and all that when it comes to that. Nuts and seeds obviously are going to be usually thrown into the category of like preparation foods or foods to have on hand. I would say sardines, or like canned types of fish that you can carry around with you, because that's a really like big powerhouse of nutrition. that you can just have even as a survival food, or even when you're out and about. So that's something I would like. But of course, if that's like too fishy, I'll be at work and I'll have to be exposed to other people. Now we have other factors to address, right? That people will bring up. And so you have to consider drinks then, right? Because most people get their calories through liquid beverages in America, sugar sweetened beverages, SSB. So what if you bring a smoothie? What if you just throw together things, a bunch of different ingredients every morning, and that doesn't require any cooking. And then you could just sip on that throughout the day. You don't even have to sit down to eat. You can actually work while doing that if you want. So that's another option, right? And, smoothies are also filling, unlike juices, because juices don't have fiber usually. So that can act kind of like a meal replacement. I'm curious what your suggestions would be and what you have in mind. But those to me would be pretty powerful when it comes to nutrition. Carrying cheeses with you, maybe having a little cooler of stuff. Maybe avocado oil chips if you want some chips to snack on, or some snacks. Make sure it's got good oils. Make sure it's non-GMO, or really good quality. It could be sweet potato chips that are baked in avocado oil, right? That's a good example of something that could be rather nutritious. By the way, sweet potatoes are super easy to grow in Florida. If you live here, you should totally grow them. They grow like wildfire. So definitely do that. As a survival food, that's one of the best ones you can grow here. And by the way, I'll give you a vine. If I meet you in person, I'm giving you a vine, and you're putting it in your ground. And you don't have to do anything with it. Like literally just throw it in the ground, it will grow. That's it.
That's pretty cool. So, I mean, I would say like I'm not usually one for the nuts and seeds because of like defense chemicals. Again, right. Like that would be
for me. I'm good with it.
Yeah, personally. That would be something that I'm staying a little bit off of, like oxalates, sex hormone binding globulate, right. Stuff like that. And so, I would prefer like, let's say, so still I would like something that's calorically dense, something that'll get me through the day. I would say like raisins, dates, like the dried fruit are really good, I would say, because they're also very portable compared to even just fruit. Because the fruit, like, it's good to have, though it can get to the point where you're carrying a big amount of it to try and get a certain amount of calories, as opposed to the raisins, the dates, like figs, like stuff like that is like kind of really just easy to take in big quantities around with you.
Sorry, do you see Paul Saladino who goes to the airport with coconuts
in
his backpack?
He takes them with him. He drinks the water from them. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, yes, juice is like, I mean, obviously fresh squeezed is better. It's going to be in a lot of ways better for you. Have more of a better of a nutrient profile. But you can fresh squeeze juice, carry it around with you, or you could do the smoothie. I like the smoothie idea. It sounded like Trump a bit there. Frankly, I like the smoothies. We don't have problems with the smoothies, folks. But we like the juice as well. Okay, so yeah, the juice is good. Like milk. I mean, I'm not as keen on pasteurized, though. Like you can have like the sort of low temp pasteurized if you can find that's optimal, or if you can get it raw, that's even better. I think cream is very satiating. It also has all the same like nutrients as milk. Like it's very rich in all of those. I think cream is a very like good filling portable thing. If you put like cream in your coffee, like a cup of cream in your coffee, you're gonna feel very satiated from it, and in my opinion, not bloated. It's gonna feel very good to have that. I would say,
boiled eggs.
Yeah, no, boiled eggs are very portable. That's actually good as well. I would take a few with me. That is good. As far as chips, you can make your own chips even if you'd like to specify which oils you like, make sure the sourcing is good and such. I know there are even other oils you can get if you like. Coconut oil is really good. You can get plantain chips in coconut oil. They make those depending on which brand you're looking for. I forgot the name of the specific brand, but they make like cassava and plantain chips. And then, you can make your own like tallow fries or whatever, what have you. Like you can make that at home as well. I mean, I think really like cooking up a plantain, it seems to be like a really good option to me anyway. Like I like to fry a plantain in butter. And honestly, I would take that around with me and just take it as sort of a portable meal. And that really doesn't take long to do, do that. So these sorts of things, like I would say, make it really easy to carry food around with you. If you're,
I would ask, like what do they like to make? Like what do they like to cook? You know what I mean? And then work from there. Personally.
And honestly, if you can find a very clean beef jerky, like not a lot of additives and such, or even make your own, because I have a food dehydrator, I make it, or even dehydrated fruit, like stuff like that. Dehydrated meat, fruit, like dehydrate food. It makes it last a lot longer. So you'll be able to carry that around with you for longer. And also, I like the idea of taking a cooler with you, because I thought if I have to work somewhere that isn't like, where I am, where I have to be like out and about all day, it's like, okay, well, I definitely am going to have to pack something. I've thought have like just big containers, honestly, of liquids to like milk or juice, like to just sort of sip on as well throughout the day and keep myself going, because I often feel like they're very hydrating and also satiating.
Yeah. Absolutely. And those, yeah, so we just gave a bunch of examples. Um, Even if like somebody, like I said, can prepare one day in advance, you can make something that creates a bulk product. So if
Yeah.
it's rice, for example, you can pair that with kimchi or anything. And rice is very versatile. I mean, look at how many uses it has in Asian cuisine. So you can add spices and herbs. You can make it different every single day, and you can just cook one batch of rice, and then you have it for the whole week. And you can add meat to it, fish. You can add anything,
Eggs.
and it's suitable, but it also will fill you up, and it's easy to make. And so, to me, that would be a good food if you as a prepping food for the week.
I like my eggs soft boiled, but I was gonna say like that's a really good prep idea for eggs, like to just create a batch of them and just
Yeah.
have them with you. Like honestly, just a couple of eggs,
That's the
just
most
carrying around.
nutritious right there.
Yeah.
Like nature's multivitamin, one egg.
Yeah, and as far as like canned foods, I mean, I know canned isn't optimal, but
Mhm.
still like I know like you could get like a sea like a shellfish like oyster clam or something, like and have that. That's really good as well if it's like an olive oil or something,
Yeah,
or just water, as opposed to the seed oils. Don't get them if they're like canola or sunflower seed or
yeah.
something.
Small
But
fish, sardines.
yeah, stuff
Yeah.
like that I would say is pretty good to carry around. Yeah, I don't know, I mean, like I would prefer something that I don't have to microwave, just because it's like, then heating up the food, it just doesn't taste as good to me anyway, just having to reheat it like that a lot of the time. Depends on the food, but especially like meat, I don't really prefer it that way. I'd probably rather eat it cold.
Yeah. I eat
uh
most of my stuff raw at this point. I don't even cook that much.
True, yeah.
Like that's the crazy thing is I used to go
Tartar sounds really good
crazy.
to me right now. I tried it once and I didn't like it years ago, but I feel like at this point I'd eat it up.
I could show you how I make it, but yeah, I make it
That'd be
like the
cool.
classic French way. Yeah. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
you
do it
should
in
actually give
person.
me that recipe. I'd really like to try that.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, like it's really simple, man. It's like ketchup. Like if you want to make it, you don't have to. Like it's fine the way it is. Some people just eat it, as is with an egg on top. But I mix the egg into it. I make it all so that way it's like prepared. And I use mustard. I use ketchup. I use Worcestershire sauce, and then capers. That's optional. And a lot of these, you kind of just do it to preference. But then you chop up some onions if you want. And by the way, it's like the bacteria is kind of gone when you're adding vinegar and when you're adding onions, but oh, it's
Yeah,
raw.
actually the
Gotta be
vinegar is a
scared.
really good point, on the vinegar.
Just saying. And by the way, when it comes to vinegar, when you're fermenting foods and you're trying to buy like sauerkraut in a store or pickles, most of them are not really fermented. If they were, you'd open them and they would explode on you. So if you want, probably make it yourself. And if you don't want to, there's a really good brand up north. It's called Food Ferments, and I used to get that one all the time living up there. That brand was awesome because you would open it and it would explode on you. It was so like real. This kimchi, the sauerkraut was like you can feel and taste how real it was. And fermented foods cannot go underestimated. Kefir, of course, being
Yeah.
one
Well,
of them.
I don't even like buy bread at any store or anything, but I made my own starter, like sourdough starter. Like
Oh,
I got one
nice.
of those kits for it, and it's just in my fridge, and I just activate it when I want to, and I make stuff with
There
it.
you
I
go.
make croissants with it, and it was really good. Like, and honestly,
Yeah,
like the sourdough reducing the phytic acid in it and everything like that, it makes it a lot easier to digest. And like I would
nice.
have problems with like traditional like gluten foods, but
Mhm.
it doesn't really give me any problems.
Beautiful. Yeah, I stay away from bread pretty much as possible because I notice things. But yeah, sourdough. If I do bread, probably that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's me too. It's like infrequent for me, but if I want to do it, I do it. Have you tried like masa harina, like the corn flour?
no, I haven't.
It's a nixtamalized corn, so it gets rid of the mycotoxin content. So
Hmm.
it'll actually like help treat the corn. They put in like this like lime solution. It's very good, and I make like pancakes from it all the time, and it's like it's just no gut issues whatsoever. It's incredible.
Wow.
I love it. I love it. I'll send you a recipe for that, honestly.
Okay. Darn,
And
that's cool.
masa harina is very accessible. There's a like Bob's Red Mill makes one, so you can
There's
find that at any store basically.
It reminds me when you mentioned like fermented foods, and then you mentioned pancakes. I think, right? You mentioned pancakes. Idli is I think a Brazilian fermented pancake that they make out of lentils and rice or something like that, and they ferment those, and then it turns into you can use it for pancakes. Pretty crazy. I haven't got to make that one. I've wanted to make it. I have it in my kitchen, like the recipe just sitting there. But yeah, I've been wanting to make that. I've made things like kombucha before. I've made my own kefir before. I've done a lot of that stuff, and that's why I was amazed coming down here too. Like seeing raw kefir in the store, I was like, "What?" Because I was making that myself up north. We didn't have Sprouts again. So we didn't have that brand. So I was like, oh my gosh, you can buy raw kefir in the store. That was like, to me, crazy. I was just like, that's like, because it's hard, number one, to get kefir, nonetheless raw kefir, and it's like, whoa. So that was great. And actually, so there was a whole month before we moved into our house here, and we were living in a trailer, and I was drinking raw kefir every single day. My skin was literally super clear and crazy good. Like that month, it was wild, right? Because I was just drinking kefir like all the time. Because like we didn't, there was not much room in the trailer. We had like 4 animals and 4 of us, and we're all like sitting there for like the whole month. And I actually liked it. I like simple living, and for me, I'm going to live a very simple life when I'm older. So I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. But needless to say, kefir can do quite a bit for people when it comes to gut issues.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude,
so let's see.
I've enjoyed this, man. This is good stuff.
Yeah. Was there anything from your chat that you wanted to pull up?
They're talking about rice. They're talking about sourdough. They're talking about malic acid powder. Rice on a bed of rice. Yeah. That's another thing. I've been experimenting with a lot of Asian cuisine. I mean, lately I've just been getting into a lot of Eastern stuff in general. I'm actually going potentially to a Chinese school in Tampa to learn Chinese, because I want to be able to deliver this message of voluntarism to a Chinese audience. So I'm going within the next couple of years to challenge myself to that, and I want to be able to speak multiple languages because I write books and I do all the seminars and stuff, but I want to reach those people. I don't care how brainwashed they are. I want to reach them. And frankly, I care about them. I think they're actually really intelligent, and they're the future. China has way more population than most other places of the world, and I want to be able to speak the enemy's language. So enemy, so-called, not my enemy, they're my friends. But
being chilling, as they say.
Yeah, being chilling. But I've been learning actually myself for the past month or so. But I want to go to a school in Tampa so I can actually get real world practice, and it'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. I'm trying to remember what I was going to mention right before this. But yeah, no, that's cool. Let me see. I'm trying to pull up your chat just to check it out as well. I guess the malic acid just reminded me of like, I supplement creatine. I know Saladino was saying he was doing that, so I tried it out because he was like, you don't really eat enough beef unless you're eating like 2 pounds a day to get a substantial amount of creatine. So that's why he does it. But then I started like mega dosing it. Yeah. So I would do like multiple scoops, and it would just like give me so much, like I would feel really good on it, honestly.
Huh. Yeah, I try not to work with isolated compounds too much because I don't want to create an imbalance, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I don't want to take one part of something unless I was really in dire need of it. Of course, I would take the most natural form possible, or a plant that would allow my body to produce it on its own, if possible. But yeah, like for instance, people will take creatine or all these different amino acids when they can just consume raw milk and then get everything they need, right? That's just an example. Or like whey protein that comes from dairy, even zinc and some of these minerals that comes from these animal products. So
you can just eat liver.
Pretty much.
Oysters, eggs.
And not even a quarter of a liver. It's like some of these supplements are kind of worthless. You look into like blueberry pills. It's like, oh, there's 2 blueberries in this one pill. It's like, what?
Why don't you just eat 2 blueberries?
Yeah, exactly. I'm telling you, it's literally a thing. And they make supplements for things. It's like, you can literally just eat that and you can save so much more money.
It really only sounds like, I mean, not even just cost efficient because of what you're saying. Exactly. You can just buy it and it probably is going to be cheaper. It only really sounds like it's out of convenience. Like it's for people that really can't be bothered to go buy these things and make them or prepare them, or even just eat them if they're blueberries, like wash them, rinse them, whatever. It seems like, it's out of that same, I guess it's not even really necessarily, like, I guess maybe you could call the not searching for the information and looking what's best for you. Maybe you could call that lazy, but I mean, I don't really think like people are just lazy because they want to do that. I think it's more so just, it could be out of not having that information. And like you said, it is on you to find that. But at the same time, it's like, there are just a lot of ways in which people have been sort of conditioned to not really think that way. So yeah, we do have Into the Agora saying, I'm just saying it seems like the biggest reason people buy pre-made slop from the grocery store or fast food is just because of convenience after having so many other obligations. And it's like, but we're here discussing all these things that are actually convenient as well, that you can just be buying at the store. It's just a problem of people not understanding that these aren't equivalent choices, that there's going to be a lot of things in these foods that you have to be like thinking about. And if you just think about if you can come to the information that shows you which things are better, you stop having to put so much thought into it to even really be healthy, because it's sort of like an automatic process at that point where it's like, I know this is bad for that reason, and like
Right.
this is bad for that reason. And so like it's like, now I know just to substitute the Pop-Tarts for raisins. Like, I know to, do that and this and that and that. Now I know to not buy the chips like fried in canola oil. So it's like, I know not to do all of this now I know what to actually do.
Yeah, you
And you can
form
even
new
think like,
habits.
yeah, you can even think like, maybe I'm not getting enough of this vitamin. Let me go get some of this food, because it's like, I really actually do feel depleted in that. I actually like even electrolytes, like maybe I need some more like sodium, because I've had too much potassium from like drinking orange juice. Maybe like it's imbalanced because I can feel when my electrolytes are imbalanced, and I'm like, okay, well, I need
Wow.
more of this now that I have that off. Um,
Nice.
and so, yeah, exactly. I've come to the point where it's like, I can recognize sort of what I need. Do I need like, which macro do I need? Do I need protein, fat, carbs? I can
Yep.
tell.
Me
That's
too.
something that I'm like, I
Me
feel it. I'm
too.
like, I feel full of this macro. I don't want any more of it, is something I can feel
Exactly.
as well. I want this macro instead. And so when you get to the point that you can sort of like understand your body, you actually become a lot more like just automatically aware of what you even need to buy or what you even need to consume. And
Yep.
so it just becomes a process that is not too, you don't have to put too much thought into it to the point where it's just taking away from everything else you want to even be doing.
Yes, absolutely. And this, anything in life, if it requires a little bit of resistance, a little bit of challenge, that's how we attain something new, right? I mean, even just me moving, it's like having to adapt to a new environment. I mean, it's like you get fearful, but like literally it doesn't take more than 2 or 3 weeks, and you're like, okay, I can do this. It's like where our bodies are built to adapt to whatever we start feeding it on a continual basis. So adapt to and conceive and believe with that possible reality. As Buckminster Fuller says, if you can believe and conceive it, you can achieve it. Right. So start believing and conceiving in a better future, in a better life, in a free world, because that world is possible. Let's get past the speculations, the excuses, the justifications, all the ideas in our head that are coming from other people and all the distractions. No, let's conceive and believe and make it clear and focused, and then it will be, because we're making that be the case. And you have to wonder, how is it that we've brainwashed ourselves and got into such a mess on earth? It's because we so put ourselves into that tunnel, and now we feel like we can't get out of it. So if we focus all our energy, all the same resources we have now, simply put it into another resource instead, we simply shift what we're using those resources for. Now we have a better world. All we're doing, we're not adding anything new, even we're not even removing anything. We're simply changing what we're doing with our time and our energy, our attention, and shifting it to something else. Right. So if you look at it like that, then it's a little bit different. It's energy manipulation, it's alchemy, whatever you want to call it. There's a bunch of words that have been used through ancient times to demonstrate this alchemical transmutational process. But that's
Yeah,
what it is, because you're
no, for
turning
sure.
different metals into gold through the refinement of your actions. And
And
yeah,
I can see how it can be overbearing for some people, because they're like, where do I even start? And so I guess that would be even a bigger question than like, okay, why am I not just doing this? You kind of have to have that gateway to be able to let you in. I mean, if you absolutely have nothing, I mean, I think it just comes with experimentation, seeing how you feel when you eat food and understanding that, if you have nothing else. I mean, like, you can take suggestions from whatever other people say and see if that works for you. You can even, I mean, like, just look up like these videos, because I mean, I didn't even start out knowing what I know about this, or even like finding the right people on it. Like, I started out looking up like, what are the healthiest vegetables ranked in order, like, stuff like that. Like, and it's like stuff that today I'm like, okay, well, I know why this stuff isn't exactly as accurate as I had thought it was at that point, because a lot of it is just based on what the science, the science TM says. Trademark. And so, you just have to be inquisitive. I think it really just comes down to wanting to know, rather than actually knowing exactly where to start.
yeah. Exactly. Having that internal drive. If you have other people to do it with, they might motivate you as well. You know how like some people work out with somebody? Oh, I got a workout buddy. It's like,
Mhm.
so if you have a health coach with you, constantly there guiding you and pushing you in the right direction, it helps to always have somebody in your life who can just, you can talk to, you can say, oh, well, this wasn't really working for me. And I tried this, I tried that. Just someone to share your thoughts with, because they might have input. They might see something and they say, well, did you try that? Oh, so you did that. They'll be able to see things about you because you're inside the box and you're trying to get outside the box. They're outside the box, so they can help you get outside your own box. And the same thing, vice versa. Everybody's in their own experience. So like, let's say you're in a relationship, there's going to be things you don't see because you're in it, and there's going to be things that people see about your relationship because they're not in it. So they're able to see it from an outside point of view. You can't see it because you're stuck. But being able to use help and assistance from others, it can much easier break out of that system, so you don't feel like you're dependent. It's all about, how your mentality, how you go about doing something. If you mentally say to yourself, I'm going to do this, I can do this, I have the power to change it, that can do quite a bit. But if you put yourself down and say, I'm the victim, everybody needs to give me attention, everybody needs to make me feel better, and everybody else has to change for me, you're not going to expect the change that you want. You're not going to get that change.
So we have Into the Agora. Personally, I straight up hate cooking. Get a wife, bro. No, but unironically, like, the thing is, like, what you should be doing is, thinking about it from the perspective of like, what do you value more? Do you value the convenience, or do you value like the health? And I think there's still a balance with it, to the point where it's like, you don't have to make such a choice in that manner. Like we've described, like that's not just like a either or, but to you, it's like, you just see the fast food as more convenient. You see the processed food as more convenient. But there is still convenience within eating right. And even so, like, even these people within these groups of like animal based and all that, they've shown that you can still get like at least better things, even amongst the midst of all this terrible food. Like, let's say you go to like any place that serves burgers, most of the time they're not going to put the burgers in the seed oils. They're going to just put them on the grill. There may be places that use some of that spray on the grill, but like, let's say like McDonald's, even if you get just the burger patties and not the actual sandwich, you will be in a lot better of a position than getting the actual sandwich with the American cheese and the bun that has all these ingredients in it. You are better off getting those burger patties. If I had to go to McDonald's, I'd get that. I'd get the apple slices in a bag instead of fries. It's like there are choices you can make even amongst these, like, this plethora of bad choices, that you can still pull things out and be like, well, this part of it isn't so bad. Like, these foods aren't that bad. Like, there's actually things that I can take from it, which are still more health considerate, more health conscious. Yeah. That it's like, I'm not actually sacrificing as much as I would have otherwise, even traveling. Like, generally, like there's going to be a lot of additives in food and all that. But let's say, like, for example, like I found somebody posting about bugles, because bugles are actually fried in either coconut or palm kernel oil, which are actually, like, the composition of those is a lot better than a lot of other oils. And so it's like, and this is like degermed corn in it, and like there's really not a lot of preservatives. So it's like, okay, well, that's actually way better than most other chips you could buy, right? But if you can find, like, let's say the coconut oil plantain chips, that's even better, right? So it's like, okay, well, there's levels to it. Right. Don't just settle for the Lay's. Try and find something that's better than that. And even so, like, does it really have to be that all or nothing? Like, can't you just find a better option, even if it's still not the optimal thing? Can't you make a step up? Can't you try to be like, well, you know what? I'm just not going to go for the worst thing possible. You're still doing better to yourself that way than saying, like, I just kind of give up because it's like, it's just kind of hard for me. I'm just going to go for the whatever. It's still better to at least be somewhat cognizant of what you're doing than not at all.
Absolutely, dude. You hit on so many different levels. I love it. That's incredible. Again, you create that environment, you obligate yourself too. It's like, if you put the junk food in front of you, it's constantly in front of you. You're facing advertisements on TV, it's constantly in front of you. There's a reason why they do it, guys. It works. You know what I mean? So think about, what you put in your environment, the people you're around, what they eat, their habits, because it's going to influence you too. Whether you, and again, you have control to say, oh, I don't want to do this or not do it. I don't want to say you don't have control, but I also want you to recognize that those people will unconsciously, shadow consciously basically influence you in ways that you may not understand. And then you wonder, oh, well, how is it hard? Why is it so hard for me to keep this certain habit? And why is it so hard to do this or that? So it's incredible. Somebody said, love what you do, love cooking, love the quick choices, and it'll be easy and fast. Yeah, just love the process and make it an art, right? Like, for me, cooking is an art. I actually like it because, to me, it's like I'm working before I get the food. Maybe that's a weird way to put it, because if you're working on a bunch of other things, then maybe, you feel like, oh, I don't really want to work on getting food. But food should be something really important to you, because this is your nourishment. This is your energy. What you eat is going to determine, a lot of other things. So it really depends on how you prioritize it within your life. Do you give it a lot of value, or do you give other things more value? Do you give more value to the TV and watching movies and TV shows, or do you give more value to spending that time instead to cook up something and maybe doing it while watching TV, doing it while listening to music? People do that for a reason, right? Cooking music. So whatever it has to be. Yeah, whatever it has to be. to get you to do it. Find out what works for you, and that's, I'd say,
And even just as a basic food recommendation, again, like you can just eat straight up honey because like the Hadza, they actually like, I think it's like 15 to 20% of their calories are from honey. They just eat that. You know, it's like, this is not a bad food. It's not like something like these, like high fructose corn syrup or something. I mean, you got to watch out for the sourcing of honey because it may be tampered with, but you know, just eating honey is like something that is actually just, it's consistent with the human biology. It's a lot different than eating all these processed garbage foods, to the point where it's like, it's not equivalent to these foods that you're like, oh, they're sweet, so they're bad. Honey's actually a great food for you. It's an incredible food. I know a guy on Twitter, which is a recommendation I can give, named Anabology. He actually has a website called Longest Levers where he puts like a bunch of different articles from people up. It's kind of in the process of being made, so there's not like too many, but he kind of gives like different protocols. And one of his that he came up with was the honey diet. And what he would do, he would eat a significant amount of honey throughout the day and sort of do like a protein fast to stimulate this thing called FGF21, which is a hormone. And it causes actual fat burning. So when he's like, he's basically going into a carbosis rather than a ketosis, right? So it's actually an interesting perspective he has where he's trying this out. And he's saying it's actually pretty in line with your metabolism. It's actually metabolically like healthy to do. He gives a lot of good justifications for it that I honestly think is like actually pretty good. And he's showing the results of it. He's showing like, because he's obviously very focused on metabolism, thyroid function, and so on. He's not just going from a perspective of, oh, it loses weight. You know, he's going from the perspective of, is it healthy to do? And he finds that, yes, it actually is. And he's giving reasoning for it. So, you know, there's different methods you could use, but even beyond that, it just means that like, well, honey doesn't kill you. And it actually does support your energy. It's something that can actually be incredibly nutritious for you. So it's like, oh, well, you know, why not just carry some honey around too?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's a crazy how people are finding that out, right? How sugars are different in their natural form than the artificial form. But then some people will be like, oh, but it's all sugar. It's like, how about the fact that coconut oil has the same saturated fat structure as meat? We wouldn't say coconuts are the same thing as meat.
It's funny though, because like, why is coconut oil not so like vehemently gone against in like sort of the consensus, but meat is, for the same reason they have, which is saturated fat. They're like, oh, you know, like the saturated fat, you know, is so bad, but then don't go for coconut oil. So it kind of makes you question. It's like, why are they saying this? You know, how is saturated fat really bad for you? Can you tell me about that? Because if coconut oil isn't causing heart disease, then why is meat, according to your consensus, right? Why is this? Why do you believe that's the case?
Well, there are a lot of doctors who say coconut oil does cause heart disease, which is,
well, it depends on the doctor. I'm just saying, like, health consensus wise, they treat it as something different when it's like, it's still a saturated fat. Like, so what exactly is the point here?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like, just thinking about it, it's like, really, you're gonna put meat and coconut in the same category? Like, exactly. But you know, like, but it's insane seeing how, you know, people have agendas, and we're able to discuss anything, like somebody going on a all honey diet. There's people like the rice diet from Japan. I mean, that guy healed so many people just doing rice. There's water diets where people just drink water.
Are you talking about like what do you mean when you say the rice diet? Because I know there's like the Kempner rice diet. Are you talking about?
I know it's related to macrobiotics, perhaps, but there's different types. I know. I know one that I follow from Joshua Rosenthal from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is again where I got a lot of my teachings from too, for health coaching. He learned directly from somebody who promoted the rice diet, but he, you know, in the school doesn't promote it. He's just like, hey, this is one option. It helped a lot of people, but be able to learn from all these different diets. So like, that's what I find great about talking with you, is like, you're able to say, okay, this is what works for me, and look at all these other diets and look at this. It's like working for other people. Why is it working for them? Somebody with an agenda would say, oh my gosh, no, that's not going to work. It's like, how do you know? You're not even them. And this person, it does work for, right?
Yeah. So like, I mean, I'd really say it's coming from at it from a perspective of like, there can be a common thread of things that work that you don't have to integrate exactly as I do for it to work, but there's sort of common factors rather than it being like a collection of like these exact factors put together. So it's like, I still believe like seed oils won't work for people as far as them trying to be healthy. But you know, at the same time, it's like, if you're saying I'm on a keto diet and I'm healthy, I'm not going to say like automatically now, at least, you know, I'm not going to say, oh, well, necessarily this is what keto does to you. I'm going to say, well, maybe if you're doing keto this way, then it's actually going to be a problem. If you're doing keto like the other guy that I was talking about with the cream diet, it seems like it's working for him, and it actually seems like the logical justification makes sense for what he's talking about. So, and it aligns up with the thyroid health. So I'm really just looking for results here, and really just looking for how in line it is with, you know, how your health is. You know, even if you do say like, there could be people who say, well, it does work for me. Okay, well, at the same time, it's like you do want to look to see it actually is working for them to verify. Yeah, exactly. How do you know it's working for that person? There are markers that can show you this. There are like different aspects of their health that can tell you whether or not things are working. But it's more of the idea of like, it's not going to look the exact same for everyone because there are people with different problems. Like obviously they share roots. A lot of these problems, like autoimmune disorders, share their roots in your like immune system. But there's going to be things that work better for other people depending on their symptoms. Like somebody may have more bacterial overgrowth in their gut than I do. And so that may alter the way that they have to go about things before they can fix that. So it means that, maybe I can't recommend the exact things I'm doing, but I can have a general idea of what may work for that. And I may have a general idea of what doesn't work for that. So there can be things I can say, this doesn't work, but I'm not going to look at you and just say like, everything you're doing must be wrong because you have this label keto, or everything you're doing must be wrong because you have this label vegan. Yes, veganism overwhelmingly won't work because of how people are doing it. But I'm not going to look at you and say, well, it's exactly because you're not eating this exact amount of meat. You're not eating. Yeah. So like, it may be that you're not getting these vitamins, and those may be very available in meat and cream and such. But, I can't really look at you and say, you absolutely have to change what you're doing in every aspect for it to be perfect.
Yeah, I love your energy. I love the way you approach this. And you gave examples before, like you said, you found a corn flour that worked, and some people may call that a seed flour. It's like, but again, there's different types of soybeans. And then also there's fermented soybeans, right? And then some people who work out straight up will take soybeans because of the protein content, at least they claim, right? So, there's different, there's different ways to approach it, but there's been so many different alterations to our food that it's hard to get really clear on it unless you look at a particular thing and you really nail it down. So I like the fact that you nailed it down. You said this works for me, this doesn't. Some people make those generalizations because they don't have it nailed down. They don't know what's going on yet, or maybe they're new to health, or maybe they're still trying to figure things out. Or maybe they have a celebrity that they like, and that celebrity is promoting one thing and they're making that their brand. And now anyone who challenges them, they're never going to change their mind because they're making money off of that brand, right? So if you bear that in mind, it's like, yeah, we're falling into another identity crisis. We're falling out of one, but then we're just going into another, just like the Democrat who becomes a Republican, or a Republican becomes a Democrat, or whatever. They think their way is the best until they find out, oh, shoot, I was wrong again. Because nature doesn't have a political party. It doesn't have a singular diet. Now, yeah, there are methods that we can see work along the lines of social progress and perhaps, dietary progress and so forth. But then putting that into a grasp and putting that into a framework is often where we lose the bet, because then we say this is how it is and no other way it should be. So we need to be able to be flexible, which is why I like integrative nutrition, because there isn't an ism to it. You can call it an ism if you want, but the more you constrict it, the more it loses its power. It's like the more you try to hold on to truth, the more you lose it. It's a very paradoxical nature, but it's more of the reason to trust your body and to listen to your body and to work with things as they are going, because the environment is changing a lot. There's different meters and EMF frequencies and all sorts of vaccines, all these things that are being introduced. So being able to work with that in a world that's constantly changing and evolving, you need to be able to let go in some sense and trust your body and listen and tune in.
And, imagine like, the people that tell these people, like whenever somebody does something and says, well, I feel terrible doing this. And the person's like, oh, well, that's part of the process. You feel terrible first and then you feel good after. It's like, well, does that really line up that you're feeling terrible doing something and eventually you'll just start feeling good again? In most cases, no, that's not the case. Yeah. There might be something, maybe it could be like, there's some rare case where it's like, something's causing, I can't really imagine many cases in which this is the case, but, it might be that the body's excreting something like, they want to make it a toxin argument that the body's releasing the toxins. Maybe that's possible, but you still want to mitigate the toxins even being released, because that's going to have a negative effect on the body. Like, let's say seed oils, for example, if you're detoxing from them, and they're just, there's just like free fatty acids in the blood from the seed oils, being liberated from the adipose tissue. And then, you're feeling terrible because of that. It's actually having a lot of damage on your internal organs, especially your liver. And so, like, it's not good to say, oh, well, that's just the seed oils working, that's the seed oils being depleted, and that means it's working. Well, it is depleting the seed oils, which is good, but now you have another problem, which is damage to the body, which is going to also be long-term. So it's like, okay, well, what are you doing to mitigate that? You can't just say, hey, I already found the solution by doing this. Well, you really shouldn't be feeling bad finding a good way of feeling.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, we'll just, it's like the government justification too. Well, we'll just harm this group of people. And then in the long run, for the whole society, it will be good.
Guys, it's a temporary government program, okay?
It's like, yeah, it's like, no, it shouldn't be like that. Diet should be a lifestyle. It should work. It should be sustainable. It should be pretty universal, right? It should be timeless in a sense. It shouldn't be this temporary thing that we restrict ourselves and then, oh, we have to go back on it a couple months later and, oh, I have to go on a diet again. You know, it's like, no, it shouldn't be like that. Oh,
Yeah.
we got to pass a law. We got to change the politician. Oh man, he screwed up. It's like we're living in a world that's not sustainable because we're not looking, I would argue, at nature or understanding, you know, more of who we are. But you know, that's confounded with knowing thyself, not just knowing the world around us, because we are essentially part of the natural world. And so our detachment from that has us longing and looking for other solutions constantly until we find out we've had the solutions all along and they've always been around us and we've simply been ignoring it and thinking, and literally because we've been brainwashed in the schooling model too, to think it has to come from authority figures, you know. And so that covers health, that covers most topics in our world, is because if you can control the food supply, you control the medicine, you control the monetary system, you control the people, right?
Yeah. And exactly. And that's why they want it to seem like health is like no pain, no gain. Like you have to do these extreme things to be healthy because they want you to work for it. They really want you to work for it. They don't want you to have this like easy solution where it's like, oh, you can actually feel better and reclaim your health, like by doing these things, which are actually very beneficial and feel great to do. Oh, no. They don't want that feeling great because guess what? If everybody's healthy, you can't control them.
Yeah. And it's like, well, the doctors will have no business. It's like, that's great. It's like, oh, it's like, but they're celebrating how many people they're curing and how many hospitals are being created. That's not a good thing. That means more people are sick. That means more people need help.
Yeah. Imagine all the people getting cancer that you have to say we're curing. You know, that means so many people got cancer that now it's like, okay, the ones we can save, we're accomplishing something here as opposed to preventing it in the first place. And then they'll tell you, you know what you have to do though? Stay out of the sun. You just have to stay out of the sun. You just have to not eat beef. You have to.
Just don't do anything that your ancestors did for hundreds of thousands of years.
Here's what you have. First of all, we're not medical professionals. What you have to do is wear sunscreen indoors because you're getting indirect sunlight all day.
No, you have to give the full disclaimer. We're not here to prevent, cure, treat, diagnose any disease. This is for education purposes only. If you seek medical advice, you have to go to a professional.
Yeah, there you go. You heard it first here, YouTube.
It's in the algorithm. We're good.
Yeah, there you go. So we're clearly giving just two people's perspectives. Okay, you know, it's just an open conversation, open to rebuttal by viewers. Yeah. We will entertain all challenging to these views.
Hey, I couldn't go outside today because it was raining. So I mean, this was good. I enjoyed this. But yeah, dude, we should hang out sometime if you want. Up to you. I'm not putting you on the spot. You know, not doxing you or anything yet. No, but like the other guy, doxing him. How dare you?
Yeah, I can't believe that I revealed his region. That's
So did you go to school here too, or like?
Yeah, I mean, I've been here my whole life.
The people have been on your channel. Like, how'd you meet them? Are they like?
So some I have met through organizations. You know, as you see, there was somebody that's like he's such a great leader. There's another guy that was in the chat that I know from like a university. There are people that sort of you know. There are people that I'll meet through like going to national events, you know, like, you know, there's certain retreats and events that are outside of the state even that I'll go to. And I've met people there. And then even from that, there are just other communities that I've collaborated with where I get some of the viewers from where they come in and they're like, oh, hey, you know, I just like your content. I want to watch it. You know, this is fun. I want to comment. I want to be a part of the community. Just get people in on the Discord server. And then they just start. And by the way, if you want to get on the Discord server and you're watching from Cory's channel, DM me because I don't put the link out for the public. It's just a matter of just not having like a bunch of like trolls in the Discord, but it's Anarcho, ANARCHO, Nitrain. It's like the Guns N' Roses song, NIGHTRAIN. So Anarcho Nitrain, you can DM me on Discord. We'll chat a little bit, not too long before I invite you because, you know, obviously it's like, I want to get people in. It's just, I want to vet you a bit. Just make sure you're somebody that's not going to mess around. I know Cory's audience isn't going to do that, but you know, you never know. There might be somebody random watching being like, hey, I'm from Cory's audience. What's up? Like, let me get in the server.
Yeah. Don't put me on the spot. Don't group me in with that.
Yeah, no. But I'm sure plenty of great people. If you do want to find my content and you're watching from Cory's channel, I am Civil Offense on YouTube and a lot of social media. You can follow me on there. And I know Cory probably wants to give his shout outs to my channel because we are sort of dual streaming here, streaming each other's video. But yeah, I don't know. I guess like, yeah, it's just been good meeting people that way, sort of through these communities. It really has been just engaging with communities. Honestly, that's the common trend of things, really. Aside from maybe like a couple people that I just knew from university or high school, like those are still a community if you think about it, like the class members and all that. But if anything, these greater communities are the ones that I've like met a lot of these people through that come in here.
Yeah, I was impressed the minute you started producing content and I started seeing it shared on Discord. I was like, wow, you got really big potential and I want to see you keep going. So
Yeah.
if I can help that in any way, then
and
yeah.
frankly, I need to be a bit more consistent. I see you're consistent, dude. You're like always posting YouTube videos. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, I developed like my own schedule, way of
Yeah.
doing things. I have my own newspaper now. So now it's like I know I'm going to have content all the time. So that's how I do it. I kind of create and obligate myself to put it out on a consistent basis. And that way I'm also not like sitting around like, what am I going to put out? So that's the way I do things. And yeah, I'm always willing. If you ever need anything, let me know. If anybody from your audience ever needs anything, I create a lot of different projects and events for people to join, both online and in person. And we're probably going to do some big in-person events soon in Florida. So I'll let you know about that. And anybody's always welcome to those. I'm pretty public with it and very demonstrative, and I really welcome you to join me for I think what I'm trying to do. I think getting involved with colleges, I don't know how it'll go, but just trying to make conversation, have fun, just talk to people, open minds, and just share, and I think that will be cool. You have great energy, so like that's awesome, because I know I talk to a lot of people and they may not understand me. They're like, how are you going to reach the youth? It's like, well, I'm just going to be myself. I'm just going to have fun. Like, I'm not going to go there like, oh, this is what you got to think. Like exactly what we talked about today. A lot of this idea of like, oh, here are great ideas, but also, here are these also other good ideas, and here are also these groups of people doing this and these other groups of people. And that way people can discern. And, I want to be friends with the college professors. I want to be friends with everybody. I don't think I'm the type to make enemies. I really don't think I'll be that controversial. I've seen people like Milo when I was in 2016. Of course, Milo went on college campuses. I don't know if you remember that, and he was like
I remember hearing about it, but
yeah. But to me, that was inspiring. When I was 16 and I see that, I'm like, whoa, all this energy in the room, and all these people coming together. And you see that now with other people who are doing stuff in colleges. So clearly there's a big momentum for it, but there's also, some people throwing riots and burning books and stuff. And I wouldn't want that to happen. But I think there is nothing more unifying than voluntarism. So I think it's the idea whose time has come, and growing food. Again, not many people can disagree with it. So if we can share these two ideas, and again, growing food works with having animals and all the other systems too, stacking functions, we can really share a powerful solution to the world. And I welcome you to join me with that, because we got to inspire. We got to reboot this culture, dude. We got to make games great again. We got to make music great again. We got to make the world great again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually do. I do some music production as well.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I love doing like creative stuff. It's really fun. Not just having the conversations, but like having some sort of output and some sort of like artwork. It's nice to it's sort of like a self-reflection, It's nice to do. And I know you probably want to advertise yourself a bit to my channel for the people that are here.
I have my link on the screen anyways.
You could sort of give what you want information wise.
Okay. TheLiberator.us is the main website I run as a newspaper, basically named after the abolitionist newspaper in the 1800s. The abolitionists had a newspaper called The Liberator. So mine is The Liberator 2. It was the main one that fought against slavery and the systems of control, that is government. William Lloyd Garrison, people like Lysander Spooner, you probably heard of him, but there's many others like Josiah Warren and even Ezra Haywood and Jeremiah Hacker. And I have like lists and lists. I go into my book, Slavery Gone for Good. I mentioned that. I have my book on Taoism. I wrote books on several different subjects. I create my own philosophy. I have my channel on every platform is usually Nature is the Answer, Cory, Nature is the Answer. And you'll find me pretty much everywhere: Rumble, Odyssey, Rockfin, BitChute, you name it. And a lot of great connections are happening. So anybody is welcome to connect with me, email me. I have a tap link that has like every link in the world, but really theliberator.us is the main website I would recommend. And I run other websites too, but that's beside the point.
All right. And Into the Agora says you can also shill your YouTube content there too. I think he's talking to the audience. I mean, I guess in the Discord server. Oh, wait, he had a message right before that. He says, and hey, Cory, if you're interested, I'll send you an invite to my server as well. My community is pretty similar to Ahmed's. And we have a lot of people in there who would be interested in a health expert. And so, yeah, he does
Well,
say
I'm
you
not
can
an
share your
expert,
YouTube
but
content.
Ahmed over
Trust
here
the
knows a lot
experts.
about.
Don't trust
Ahmed,
us. Trust the experts.
dude, you know a lot about the stuff you've been researching. I'd love to see it, and that's it. We just got to create the conversation. I think I'm actually more credible not calling myself an expert at this point, going with what's going on in the world. I'm really just like a health coach, and it didn't take me long to get that certification, but I just like to work with people from where they're at and learn from others, and I'm always learning. So I think that's something everybody should do, and in fact, that's why health coaching was created, because of the failed healthcare model, because all these doctors were corrupt and only selling drugs. So that's why it exists, and so I'm just like the common day person, because that's what they want. They want common day people teaching nutrition to common day people. And so that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah. Well, it's been a really good talk. I guess this is kind of our wrap up point for it. But yeah, looking forward to more conversations, honestly.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in the university stuff. I'd really like to like record some stuff with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to put it out there for people. I think there's such an opportunity to do like shorts from that, because I see like shorts all the time on these sorts of conversations.
100%.
I think like the most stimulating parts of that you can just sort of clip and just put out there for people to see. And then that kind of like just brings a lot of traction to your message. So, I mean, I definitely think that's a advantageous thing to do. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, we'll definitely be in talk, even outside of the podcast, but I'd also love to do more shows. That would be pretty good. We could probably talk with some of the other people that were in on this chat, bring them in here, talk with them. Yeah, for sure. But is there anything else you wanted to mention?
No, but I'm down. I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I would like to start doing the show more often, like a weekly thing.
Okay.
Cause I really don't even do it weekly at this point, but I'd like to.
All right.
At least.
Yeah,
and we could do that. We could do that sort of like you were talking about, like the hangout viewing thing.
I wanted to go
like
live
content.
more often too. Frankly, I haven't got to go live on my channel enough, and I like to do live streams because it's just more like connecting with the audience. So yeah, I'm cool with that.
And like you were saying, it was like that hangout viewing thing, like the viewer party.
Yeah,
like we could do that sort of thing.
That
the watch
cool.
party. Like we could do that live too. I mean, as long as we're not like just playing the content and not saying anything, we could just sort of like pause it and talk.
So I wrote up a psychology experiment, right? That I want to do in person. And now it's ethical, I promise. Okay, of course it's not unethical, but it's based off of like the Stanley Milgram experiments and the Stanford prison experiments, but working it into a different structure. And I have it all written up and everything. So basically, I just need the people to do it. So that's something that we can do in time. That would be quite amazing. Imagine doing a bit of a psychology experiment on college campuses. That'd be pretty sick. Just saying.
Nice. I'll need to see what those experiments are later, I guess.
Yeah. It's very simple, but yeah.
But yeah. If that's it, I mean, you got anything else you wanted to say?
No, man, keep up the great work. And I definitely want to see more content coming from you, because that's why you caught my eye immediately when you started putting on content. I'm like, wow. And I love to see, my own generation and people who are probably younger than me doing this stuff. I mean, that's awesome. That's great. People always said I'm the youngest. Like every time I go to these events, it's like, no, there's people out there who are younger than me. You just haven't met them.
Yeah, I've heard that too, and I say the same thing. So,
Exactly.
But yeah, that's been it, I guess. If you're on Cory's channel, I'm at Civil Offense. I already put it here. Looking forward to more shows. Thank you. Looking forward to more shows. Definitely want to focus more on the health stuff. I think that would be pretty good to do in the future. It would be cool to make some content, just reviewing it, like even like just videos, like not even live streams or anything. But yeah, that's been it on my end. And remember, guys, that civil offense is the key to winning. But don't make that an authoritarian statement. Thank you.
Peace out.